All right, we are live. Here we are. Welcome to the party. It's been like I feel like we're starting all over again, man. We took a break last week and
yeah, it was strange. Like I was like, it's Tuesday. What do I do now?
Yeah, I know. So instead of doing a live stream, we spent 4 hours talking about doing a live stream, which we needed to do. I mean, it's, as much as we like to run off the cuff and all of that kind of stuff, it's really not sustainable for doing this kind of thing. So we sat down and brainstormed like, okay, we need to come up with as many ideas as possible. And we ended up with like 40. So that's good. I mean, we have a calendar and everything now.
Well, and the idea to, again, we don't want to, like, we're not scripting it. Like, that's just not how we operate. But we want to be able to easily break out chunks into smaller videos if we need to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, also just have a general idea of this is how we're going to approach the topic and try to make it more meaningful for the viewer / listener / casual observer, whatever. I don't know. So anyway, without further ado, today, first off, introductions, I guess, as always. So my name's Andy. Matt's on the right side of your screen. We are with Atlas Precision Consulting. We are independent services provider for the Profit 21 ERP system. So we do pretty much all things P21, whether it's some consulting or system extensions, anything like that is pretty much in our wheelhouse. Business rules, reports, forms, portals. Matt, please, you're better at the list than I
am. We are your one-stop, top to bottom P21 tool providers.
Now, somebody the other day said if we said that, they wouldn't believe us. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, we will always be honest if we feel like we have better strengths in some areas than others.
For sure.
Like this is our way of training people.
Yeah.
This is what we. When I say training, I mean like click here, do here. Consulting's a little different, but this is our way to put training out there for free, just to get people more educated on the system that they're using.
I mean, it's not exactly free, and the price is you have to listen to us talk for 4 hours.
It's monetarily free.
There is an emotional toll, probably, and it might be cumulative. We don't know yet.
And we don't know yet.
But yeah. Anyway, okay. So today we're talking items, right? Now we tried this once before, and my fault. I wanted to set up a dedicated streaming station, and I did that, and I put a PC in charge
Windows
of that.
98 PC.
It was absolutely not Windows 98. It was Windows ME. But anyway, so we put. We tried it. It was terrible. Like the machine could not keep up. I ended up delisting the video. And we're going to take another crack at it with better quality MacBook. And we'll see how it goes with our normal setup. So, I think the first thing we want to talk about with this, Matt, is I know a lot of times like people that are going to watch this, they're already on the system. They've been on it for a long time. We have talked to people and have worked with people to kind of redeploy their item maintenance strategy. That is doable. It's not easy, but it's doable. But I think also this is really directed at at people who are just getting into P21 and trying to figure out what their strategy is going to be. I mean, we hear the same things over and over and over again. Our item IDs are out of control. We have, 5 of the same thing set up slightly differently. And how do you avoid that and combat those types of problems and things like that? And then we get into a lot of scenarios where it's like everything's in the default product group or there's not really any structure to how the fields are used. And you can't take best advantage of that, of the features in P21 because the data is just not in the right place to be able to do it. And so those are some of the key points that we want to cover today, as well as the mechanics of different ways you can get things done with items in P21, right? So I definitely want to spend some time talking about planning, I'm trying to think of how I really want to say this. I think what I want to say is I want to take the first part of this and really talk about having a plan going into P21 or, reinventing yourself in P21 on how you're going to use the different fields in item maintenance. I think that, to me, like just a little bit of time spent on the front end can save you a lot of heartache down the road. So I think that's probably as good a place to start as any. I mean, Matt, I know you've been down this path in a former life, but also multiple times in this life. Mm-hmm. What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest mistake people make is just quickly, all right, well, this data from my system can go into this field and can go into this, and because there's fields there, without actually understanding where those fields are utilized in P21 and what they're really meant for. Sometimes they'll use product group as a way to group like items together, or like vendor items, which maybe there's a way to do that with classes, which is what classes are generally meant for, is a way to group items and segregate your items, where product group is primarily almost extensively used for purchasing purposes, but it does also have some GL ramifications. Sometimes P21 kind of gives you a hint, like price family ID. Okay, that should tell you that most likely you're going to use that if you're trying to price things. It's right. A way to, take the time to, and whether it's if you're going through this implementation or if you've already been live with P21 and you always have this field on your screen that just has D for default, maybe you don't need that field, but maybe you should ask, what's that field for? And maybe we can find a way to utilize that in P21 to make things better. And then you don't have to use every field, but just it helps to know before you just start plugging your stuff in there.
Agree 100%. Another thing that came to mind as you were talking about it, and you brought up the example of product group. The first thing that came to my mind is when people are migrating data, they're like, oh, hey, there's a field in P21 called product group, and we have a field in our old system called product group. Those must be the same thing. Maybe not, right. And so don't assume because two completely different systems from two completely different eras in history share a field name or a feature name, like tagging or something like that those have equivalent meanings. There's not industry standard language. There's not standard language within P21.
I was about to say.
Much less, from four other systems like, or Sage or NetSuite or whatever. It doesn't even matter. Like, no one was collaborating when they said, we should have a standard term for what a class is. That didn't happen.
No, and even if you think it's going to work, like, just because you can always change it. You can always roll it back.
Yeah.
But it's difficult sometimes. It's a lot of work. I mean, we're not even talking about renaming item IDs. We're just talking about the way you have all your items in there. I mean, you could get to the point where I was talking to a customer about helping them with a project. They have 460,000 products in their system.
Yeah.
And they add about 50 a day. So if you wait 10 years from now, from when it's going to be tough, but
yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the example that's coming to my mind is we recently had a customer go live in the public cloud, P21, and I don't like the idea that they trained their customers, but I would say that their customers became accustomed to using this code that they were internally generating, right? Mm-hmm. And the customers would say, hey, I need a ABC 123. And even though that has no reference to anything in reality, in this customer's prior system, they could execute on that, and their customers got used to that. And it got lost in their implementation in P21. Just lost.
It just got thrown into
a field that was of no value. Couldn't be
keywords?
Used.
Keywords? Yeah.
And it wasn't even clean in keywords. It was like stuck in there with some other stuff.
Yeah.
And this is really on the topic of trying to unravel past sins. So, we're in there going, okay, now we're going to have to write something that will go in there and harvest all of that out, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of items. So mass updates off the table, right? So now we're writing an app that can go grab all that data, cleanse it, figure out like, okay, this is actually the code and here's the prefix we need to stick on it. And now, we came up with the idea of, hey, if you're not using short code, let's put it there, because that will work really well for what you're trying to do. So we did that. I want to say the deployment on that, using pricing service in batches of 75,000 records, was still 4 hours to change one field. It was, it took a hot minute. And then we had to have a business rule on top of that to keep up with the new items coming in. Anyway, that's a long story, but again, it's possible to fix these things. So don't think that just because that's the way it is, that's the way it's going to be. We have one starting up right now of, we need to clean up these items. Okay, well, let's agree on what that scope is. And to the customer's credit, the first thing that they identified they wanted to do was, we need to get rid of a bunch of items we haven't sold in years. We just need to soft delete them. Now we're automatically reducing the scope of what needs to get cleaned up. That's actually a very intelligent strategy. It really is. And we have actually 2 customers trying to do this right now. And we're working on some tools to make that less painful, even in the public cloud. So it can be done. But ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I know that's very cliche, but I think it's extremely pertinent, to say the least, in P21. So yeah. So I think maybe the way to do this part is, we'll go into item maintenance, look at these fields. We can kind of talk through what they are, maybe different ways we've deployed those fields, and go from there.
I just realized the best part about doing the stream again.
Yeah.
I get to say my favorite thing ever.
Oh, go for it.
Do I want to say it now, or do we want to wait till
you could go Pirates of the Caribbean and wait for the opportune moment. That's what it is.
Stock is never a default.
Oh yeah, well, we're gonna get there. That's going on a T-shirt. I'm telling you, if we ever have merch for Atlas, that's the first thing we're releasing.
Stock is a choice, not a default.
All right, so I'm gonna pull up my favorite item. I don't know why it's my favorite. I think it's just the item ID I memorized from all this senseless data. Okay, so I think one of the things that we need to differentiate for folks is, like, I'm looking at the discount groups. That's there at the top half of the screen doesn't really mean anything. I mean, that's going to push it down to the location level. But short code, that's ubiquitous across the entire item. So let's make sure that we don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, typically, like, same thing with price family ID. If you see the word default, basically what it means is, if you have that set before you start adding your locations, it's going to pull that data from that field. If you don't have a default set, you would have to manually set one at each location.
I think it actually compels you to set default discount groups. I don't think you can get
the discount, but not the price family. The price family ID is not a required field.
All right, well, let's just start with discount groups. I mean, it's right there at the top of the screen. So for me, and certainly you should weigh in on this as well with your experience with it. I mean, to me, this is very clear what it's for, right? This is like my go-to for how I'm going to manage price libraries, and supplier pricing and stuff like that, on both the sales and the purchasing side. One of the things that we see is it's all set to default, number one, or number two, these two are always the same, or it's the same list of choices that populate both. They don't have to be. I mean, it all feeds from the discount group table, which is a single table. But my point is this: you can absolutely have sales groups or sales discount groups that go based on, pipe, fittings, valves, whatever.
Right.
But then your purchase groups could be list times 0.5, list times 0.4, list times 0.37. I mean, what you want to do with these is think about, in the context of figuring out pricing, right? What's the most effective way to deploy these fields? For sales discount groups, unless you're working in something that's extremely regimented, where we buy at a 0.5 and sell at a 0.7, and there are plenty of companies that do that. That's a great way to use it. But I like sales discount groups when they are set up around the same way that the person on the street out there pounding the pavement trying to make sales, the way they price. So if they say, hey, all of our fittings pricing is, you get one multiplier for all your fittings, or one multiplier for all your valves, or one multiplier for gate valves versus that type of valve, whatever. That to me is a very intuitive way to set up discount groups.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is when I said the D in the field. These are the two fields I was thinking about, because so many people either don't know what these are for or just don't utilize them. Now, there are some people, like if your pricing is simple, if you're a markup or markdown multiplier across the board, you're probably not going to use a ton of these. But I think in this day and age, it's very rare for somebody to be a straight multiplier like that on everything.
Yeah,
it's not very common. And I'll be honest with you, like it's one of those areas where I know enough about it to know what the area it's for, but again, so many people I see just have D's in there.
Yeah.
And it's
kind
of funny to me.
Yeah, it is to me too. And so if you're asking yourself, what's my strategy here? Again, I just go back to forget about the technology for a minute. And I say that a lot because I think people too often make business decisions that they think fit the technology, but they end up hurting the business. So think about, this is how we price. When we are pricing something to a customer, it is based on the type of whatever that is, and then look at that and go, okay, we can set up pricing stratifications around that with libraries. We can have a discount group for this type of product, and that may not follow how you want to report those sales in your general ledger. That's okay. This is just for the purposes, I say it's just for the purposes of pricing. That is what should primarily be used for. That's my soapbox on discount groups. Go ahead.
I was going to say, before we again, if you've been in the system a while, you know this, but we kind of skipped over the item ID and description. Those are both 40 character fields.
Yes.
And you can use spaces and dashes and, but I think that's part of the planning is how are you going to name stuff? And every time I see somebody, we got the perfect plan. This is exactly how we're going to name everything. These two characters are this, and then inevitably 6 weeks in, something breaks it because there was, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to make your item IDs always mean something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I feel like that if I had B-roll for this live stream, I would be dropping in the Mythbusters iron plate right now. Because I've been seeing a rash of scenarios lately where there are some extreme misconceptions about what you can and can't do with your item IDs and descriptions, and it's starting to get under my skin.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's getting under my skin is because, again, the tech is driving the business, and it's supposed to be the other way around.
Right.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So number one, special characters. All right. Oh, you can't have X, Y, and Z character. You have to use some sort of abbreviation. Right. Okay, look. Single quote. I'm kind of with you on that one. That one's bad because it has SQL implications. That's not to say it can't be done, but in the item ID for sure, it shouldn't be done. I might not even... I've seen them get in there before, but I technically don't think you're supposed to be able to do that. In the description, I would recommend to get single quotes. Again, it has an extremely specific meaning in the underlying database. That's the one character where I feel like, maybe you stay away from that one. But ampersands, dashes, underscores. Dashes is the one that gets me. People like... And it's usually like comes in with like e-commerce that like people get freaky about dashes. And I don't understand why. That's an extremely common character. I think what it is, if I'm not mistaken, is because a dash has to have a special encoding in a URL on a website. It's like %20 or whatever it is. I don't care. That's fine with me. You know, that's fine, because again, if your standard in your industry is it's, you know, like, can you imagine telling the fastener industry they couldn't have dashes? How would you ever communicate size and thread pitch? You couldn't do it.
No.
Yeah. So, you know, just whatever your data is what it is. And you have to figure out, like, when you're extending that to something else, a mandatory reinvention of the wheel, I just don't think is right. I think you have to look at it and go, how do we bridge this gap with no real human intervention? Yeah. But it's a bridge. It's not must be this or must be that.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to, yes, if you ask me, would it be easier for everybody involved if no special characters ever existed in any of this stuff? Sure, of course, because, you know, then you're just dealing with numbers and letters. But that's not reality. Yeah. Reality is, this is how the industry had, you know, especially certain industries go back all the way to order notepads, and, you know, this is just how it is. And whoever's, whether it's somebody like us or whoever's helping you with your data in general, you're going to have to do a little extra work on the data side to make sure the business side is taken care of.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the data side isn't what brings the money in.
That's right.
The business side is what brings the money in.
Except in our company, we're different.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
we're special. But
it's about 50-50. I mean,
but yeah, no, your point is spot on, Matt. I mean, that to me, like, you know, I think we even have something on our website that says, like, we have a business first approach, because the business should be driving everything. The strategic direction of the business is what's key. It's not, well, we're limited by our technology. I don't want to hear that. You know, I don't want to hear that.
And it's the common thing we always tell people. It's like, don't worry about what P21 can or can't do. What are you actually trying to accomplish?
Right. And then we'll figure out how to get that done.
Right.
And I mean, like even to the extreme, and for the extreme example in item creation is a customer coming to us and saying, we're using serialized items. And I don't mean turning serials on. I mean, the first item number we have is item number 1 million. The next item is item number 1,000,001, then 1,000,002, then 1,000,003. That was not easy to deploy in P21, but we got it done, you know, in a way that worked for them. And that's important to them. And that's what they wanted, was sequential item IDs. Okay. You know, that's fine. And that works for whatever. So anyway, I think the other thing I would mention too is, and I know this field's a little farther down, but on the topic of description, Matt's correct. You get 40 characters in the main description and then an additional 255 in the extended description. And I would say, don't be afraid to use the extended description. It's easy. You know?
No, yeah, and like it doesn't show up by default on a lot of forms and screens and stuff, but you can put it on those things
Really easy.
And if you do, and if you do put it like on your line detail in or item lookup, it becomes part of the smart search or inline search, whatever you want to call it. So your main description is going to be a little abbreviated, but your extended description is that use it.
I would almost rather call it short description and description. To me, I think is more accurate in this day and age. But
because 40 characters in item IDs, that's plenty of space. But in description, not really.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, let's talk for shortcodes for a second, or about shortcodes for a second. I like this to me is an unsung hero of P21 because it can be used in different ways. So I think there's really two approaches, and the approach is either it's a 1-to-1, one shortcode is one item, or a 1-to-many where one shortcode gets you to many items. So the way that it works is, if you are in, let's say, order entry or item master inquiry, wherever you're at, and you type in something that resolves to a shortcode, if there is only one match to an item for that shortcode, so maybe you're using that as, ABC123, it will just bring up that item. It'll just flip to that item ID and you're good. However, and this is where I think companies could take a lot of advantage of this with a little bit of forethought. Let's say that you're in a business, and like Fastener comes to mind to me right off the top, probably because I've worked in it before, but where you have a lot of derivatives of the same item. So it's the same diameter, thread pitch, and length, but there's 10 different finishes for it. Well, you could set up a short code where every item that shares those attributes has the same short code, and you just leave the finish characters off. And then when somebody types in that part of the number, P21 is just going to prompt you and go, which one of these did you mean? And then you get a list of all of the fasteners meeting that, type, diameter, length, whatever. And here's a list of all the different finishes we have that for. I think that's a great way to use it.
Let me ask you this, though.
Yeah.
Like, how does it work with, let's say, for some, like in our description, we call this a washer, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody put the short code washer, like, is it going to register that it is a short code, or because it's also in descriptions, is it just going to kind of treat it as an inline? Like, how would that work?
In inline search, inline search, I believe, matches with ORs. So any hit in inline search, it would float in there. Now, I think the thing about that is at the end of the day, I believe it's alphabetized. The results are by item ID. So no matter what it is, washer, it's still gonna populate wherever B and D 001991 comes up. So this is really more about if you like. I don't think this works as well or doesn't work at all in search. This is like when you're in the item ID field, it's going through a hierarchy to try to match up, right?
Gotcha.
And that hierarchy, we need to cover that today because that hierarchy actually exists in here, and you can say, I want it to hit customer part numbers before it looks at shortcodes, before it looks at supplier item IDs.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so that's something we definitely need to cover in the next segment. Price family, I've seen this used a couple of times, but that's about it. I don't see this get used a lot. Do you?
We used it extensively for price sheets, or price pages, because you can base your pricing off of price family ID. And so it was a way to group those items together for discounts or multipliers or whatever you want to call them.
Okay, cool. I'm going to drop down to location detail since we're really just talking about planning how to use these stratifying fields. Mm-hmm. I should have gone to classes. Let's go to classes. All right. You have a lot of different classes here. Now, these first three, those are specific to functionality, whether it's commissions or tag and hold. The next 5 are pretty much, you can do whatever you want with them. You go to class maintenance, you set up what those classes should be, and then you assign them by drop down.
I'm not a fan of the way the classes are managed in P21.
I am not a fan of the way that they are managed, but I will say
I'm a fan of using them, but not creating them and managing them.
Yeah. So if you have, I like these classes a lot for reporting categories. When you have, specialized outside the system sales reporting or whatever, this field is on the item header. It is, and the best part about it is not free text. Someone cannot fat finger a value in a class. You have to pick it off of a list, which I think makes it very powerful for making sure that your data is normalized across all your items. So I like it for that a lot. So those are good. What other things do we have in here that we can...
Well, we're going to go over creating items. So,
we're going to go over that separately for sure.
Really, I will say that, can we go to the unit info? If you're going to plan anything out, please make sure unit of measure is in that conversation.
Right.
Because changing that midstream,
that's tough.
Because when you change your default, whether it's default pricing, purchasing, base, there's so many questions that ask you about changing pricing and call, and it doesn't ever really work out. The biggest thing is whatever your base unit is, it needs to be a unit size of 1.
Yeah, that's required. Yeah,
you don't go the other way and go, oh, well, I'm going to use a unit measure box and make that a 1, and then you have to divide that 1 by however many come in that box. It doesn't read nicely.
So, Matt, I am on the fly adding this to our outline.
Okay.
We will have we have to have a dedicated discussion on planning your base unit of measure. So, you are spot on. That is a huge landmine. That deserves its own topic for sure.
So we will we'll do a callback to that.
Yeah, no, it's on the list right there. See,
I saw you put it on the list.
Which means we actually have a list, which is pretty amazing for us. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey. So please, I know it's a minefield. Product group ID. All right, this one's kind of near and dear for me. I would say of all of the stratification fields, this is the most important one to get right because it's ubiquitous throughout the system. Almost any screen that deals with item reporting or, PORG or all of these different things that allow you to say, hey, let's knock it down by X. X is product group. Very often you can knock things down by product group. Other thing that makes it very important is product groups are tied to general ledger accounts for revenue, cost of sales, and inventory accounts. So you can, by using product groups, like if on your profit and loss statement you say, hey, look, we want to track sales of these 5 major product groups separately, then that's what you use product groups for. And you can have subgroups of them and just roll them all into the same GL account. But my point is putting something in a product group can have the effect of automatically sorting the data in your income statement or your profit and loss statement. So think about how you want to use it. You may not care. Maybe it's just sales. Okay, fine. Assign every product group to the same GL account and don't worry about it. But if you want that type of control and visibility, this is the spot where you're going to get it.
Yeah, and when you change that product group, it'll ask you, do you want to apply those GL accounts to it? I will say this is also strange and always been strange for me. There is actually a field in the INV mass table called default product group.
Yeah, it's not I'm guessing it's legacy because I've tried putting it on screen before. It's not editable.
Yeah.
I have tried populating it. It does not affect anything on the bottom half, so I'm thinking it's just from...
I always found that very strange. Now, the nice thing is, if you if you had like 100 locations, you can right click on it and you can right click on it and apply to all locations or apply to multiple or something like that. So I don't know why it's not a default. Maybe because it's tied to GL and somebody didn't want it to do that.
Hit that way, yeah. I don't know.
But when you do the copy to other locations, it allows you to pick the locations you want to copy it to. Can you go back to pre-thinking? The track bins thing. If you are in any consultant worth their
salt,
worth anything,
salt,
should be asking you, do you intend to ever track bins or use a wireless bin system? If you are 10% maybe,
yeah, check that checkbox.
Check that checkbox. You should put everything in no bin. Do not create any other bins in the system. Just no bin. That way, nobody has to think about bins until it's time to. Now, if you start adding multiple bins in there, it can get
messy.
So just put, and again, Epicor should tell you this. They did tell us because we worked with them some on our implementation in my previous life. But don't go, nah, we're never going to do bins. Actually, you know what? Even if you say you're never going to do bins, do it anyways.
Never say never.
You want to talk about a pain in the butt of changing something midstream? That's that.
Yeah, that is
because
100%.
There's not just a flip a switch and all this stuff is now in this bin. There's bin transfers or adjust out and adjust. It's not fun.
The rest of this stuff, for the most part, I'm going to say is pertinent to creating items. So I really think that this is a good time to pause out of this and let's talk about like system settings and stuff like that. Okay. So this, I'm telling you right now, this stream marker bookmark thing better work. I have
don't worry, you just go back and rewatch the 3 hours.
Well, I just keep it says insert stream marker, so I just keep clicking it and I'm hoping like magically it's going to say you put markers in all these places. All right, let's talk about for the purposes of maintaining items, let's talk about like system settings, company maintenance settings, things like that.
Okay.
This is basic blocking and tackling stuff that you're going to want to have set up on the front end of the system before you start loading items, or something maybe you look at and you decide you want to change. Most of the fun, I think, is going to be in the inventory management part. I can't think of anywhere else that it's really too big of a deal, but we'll just...
What? Okay, there it is. I was asking where the inventory costing basis was. I didn't know if it was an inventory general or if it was in an accounting somewhere.
Yeah. So, so how you're going to cost is definitely important. So you can go average, you can go FIFO, or you can go standard. You cannot change this once you've started down a path.
Yep.
Once you have inventory transactions in your system, this is locked forevermore.
Which is funny. You think it would be grayed out, like once you made that choice, but it does tell you. I don't know if it popped up on the stream because I know some things don't pop up.
Yeah, it does. It says there are inventory transactions posted.
Well, it pops up on here. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll tell you. You know something I never noticed until just now, and I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure there's a case use is the allow duplicate UPC numbers.
So the use case for that, I can tell you what it is only because I've hit this. All right.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It's not. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it from this perspective. Are you going to buy your Rice Krispies from General Mills, or are you going to buy it from Kroger, or both? Because that box is going to have the same UPC code on it, whether you buy it from Kroger.
Oh, I got you.
Why is everything food for me? That's not healthy.
Well, because the time you decide to do this stream is always in the middle of lunch. Just saying.
Wow.
Now that I'm in, which is funny because I did eat Rice Krispie cereal for my lunch. So.
This is why I picked that example. I knew you could relate to it. No, that is why you would want to allow if you're sourcing the exact same item from multiple suppliers, whatever. So yes, that's a good one though. I'm trying to just look through here kind of quickly to see if there's anything in here for, we could talk like all this accounting stuff and all of that, and maybe we will in the future, but for right now, I'm just like stratifying and how items would be affected in the system is really what I'm looking for. And honestly, how you're going to track weight is fairly important. Whether you're going to go off gross or net, those are just different fields in your system. Let me just quickly look through item usage. That's no.
Item usage we talked about plenty in.
And I'm sure we will again.
We'll talk about it. We are going to do a stream on adjustments, physical counts, cycle counts. So we'll come back to some of this stuff, but this is all pretty specific stuff. So where was the go to order? It's order processing for the item lookup for the order.
Where is that? I never can remember where that is. Is it here? Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Unfortunately, this is system wide. I wish it was a company level setting because I could see where different companies would want to use this differently. But your item search hierarchy, this is something I was alluding to earlier, that you can change how P21 attempts to flip your part number to the item ID. So what order of importance is going to be used to say, I got a match for that item ID? So if number one is item ID. I mean, I've never seen anyone not use item ID for number one. I suppose it's possible, but customer part number, alternate code, short code, UPC number, supplier part number. So this is determining the order in which these things are going to resolve. Your options are alternate code, the assembly decoder, if you're using that. That would probably make a decent video. We would actually have to learn how to use it, but
I was about to say, what is that?
It decodes assemblies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stream done.
That thing. EAN code, GTIN code, item ID, labor process, none, short code, supplier number, and UPC number. So most of the basics are covered with the way we have this one set up. But again, if you prolifically use short codes, you might promote that up to say, we want that to be number 2. It might make sense. So you just have to look at it for your business. Like, what are you leaning on the most to resolve part numbers? And you put those things higher in the hierarchy.
While you're on the screen, also, I love that it has Control F as how to open a search window. Like, that's just standard browser searching. The search options in the box above that are related to a lot of your inline searching.
Yes.
Searching in general, but also that bottom part is your inline search, which is funny because it was one of the things that I got sold on immediately about P21 that I loved.
On the web client, yeah.
On the web client, you're right. Because when I went in, that's the way we were looking at it. But it still surprises me today that we find people that don't really know that's a thing, whether they've come... Most of them have been on P21 forever and just recently gotten to the web. And one of the customers that we were talking to about trying to help clean up duplicate items that are just slightly off, one of the reasons is they didn't have this inline search turned on. So if somebody started typing something, if they didn't type it exactly the way somebody had entered it or gone into the search
new part number,
new part number, right? Where if they would have typed in, a partial of that item ID, which they all kind of shared that same partial because it was something from I think it was the vendor code or something. Yeah. It would have probably helped alleviate some of that. So
yeah, I agree.
If you don't have that turned on,
you should.
You should.
At this point, I'm just going to say it. Unless your servers are horrendously slow, in which case you should call us immediately.
Yes.
But unless your servers are horrendously slow, there's no use case to not have this turned on that I can think of. It does nothing but help I mean, and it's
everywhere in P21.
Yeah.
Not just items. I know we're
this
talking about
is
items,
huge.
but it's yeah. So, anyways, all right, soapbox.
All right. No, that was a good one to get on. Absolutely. That one actually deserves a soap palette. The rest of this is really a lot of it's about tuning performance. And if you need help figuring out the sweet spot on that stuff, we can help you with that. But the default settings now are actually pretty good. When these sensors first came out, you didn't have this much fine control over it, and it was rough. And we did a lot of customization to knock those result sets down because it was just painfully slow. But it's a lot better now. I'll give them props for that.
I don't think there's as many other.
No, I want to jump over to company maintenance just to make sure we're not missing anything there.
Yeah.
But
a lot of your item stuff will cover in item defaults, but there are a couple. I know there's one in location maintenance that ties back to the bin thing.
All right, so let's look at inventory.
It's all accounting stuff.
Yeah, not a lot there.
I don't really.
Price? No, I've never really used price rounding, so I don't want to off the cuff that. Lost sales, not really item related. I think we're kind of okay. Oh, sales pricing. That's probably. I know that's like a pricing topic, but this is very pertinent to how items work. So I think it's worth just quickly mentioning. You in company maintenance for each company, you can choose what is available to be used for pricing.
But I will say this though, this doesn't pertain to everywhere that these source fields are available. Because even if you turn, like you have 6 through 10 turned off, if you went and did a job contract, you could pick 6 through 10 as your price source.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure which areas of P21 this
look, my default position on this is turn on everything and then just shut things off that you definitely don't want being used. Like if you have standard costs in there as a reference price, but should never be used to calculate a price, maybe you shut that off.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Mileage may vary. Just putting that out there.
Will vary, for sure. But those were the main things that I wanted to cover there, and I think I'm sure there's some other little stuff here and there that we could have gone over, just maybe not coming to top of mind. But that is really going to get you 90% of the way there.
Yeah, the only thing in location maintenance that I would even bring up is just we talked about setting everything up to track bins into no bin. You do it is a location setting to allow that location to track bins. It should be in. Is it inventory? Allow. Where is the track bins?
I really just thought that was.
Maybe I'm probably thinking of the wireless warehouse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Okay. We're good. We're cool. All right. So let me just open the next screen. Defaults maintenance.
All right. Are we now? It's
all right. I'm bookmarking. So we.
Okay. Because I'm looking at your bullet points and I'm like, hey, this is a different topic.
This is a different topic, but we're still talking about dealing with items, and so this segment we are talking item defaults maintenance. Now, I don't even think I'm going to have to say anything. I think you have a lot of strong feelings about this screen, and yeah. I am just going to like pull up a record and then run away.
Yeah, unfortunately, I understand the need for item defaults, especially if you're allowing item on the fly and things like that. You have to have some of this stuff in here, and there are some good things. Like if you scroll down. The track lots, or not track lots, truck bins should always be turned on, and that primary bin should be no bin. That goes back to what we were talking about. That I don't.
Well, let's say this. Let's before your eye starts to twitch. This screen defines like on a location by location basis. So you need to set this up for every location. But this defines sort of the base layer of if you don't tell me what to do, I'm going to use these settings when I set up an item.
And it's funny because we have some of these filled out, but not necessarily all of these are required. But like stuff like the base unit being a default drives me nuts, just because not every product is created equal. So unless you're always our base unit, we're always going to say is each, then cool, it works for you. But really, for me, it's the stockable flag down there. For the love of God, do not check that in your item defaults.
All right. I know it's in the chat and everybody can look down at the chat and laugh, but I'm sorry. I got to put this on screen somewhere because it's very funny to me. Oh, come on. Hang on. I'm getting there. Palm olive soap in the system 10 different ways. That I find that incredibly funny. Okay. Sorry for interrupting your rant, please.
Again, stockable is a choice, not a default. Like stock, and it's true. And I know I make light of it, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody with 300,000 stockable items in their system when they only really sell like 1,500 to 2,000 regularly.
Correct. Yeah.
It just makes noise.
I think it sows distrust. It really does. That's kind of my big takeaway from it is when everything. It's kind of like email, right? Like everyone has that one human they interact with in life that, like, you know, if they send you 15 emails, 14 of them have the right exclamation point. Mm-hmm. When every email has a red exclamation point, none of them have one. And It's kind of the same thing. When every item is stockable, none of them are stockable.
When everything is critical, just in different shades of red.
Yeah.
Nothing is critical. Product group ID, I want to call, like, having a default of that, is that a required field?
I don't believe it actually is.
Because like we said, that's tied to GL accounts. So you want to make sure that if you are a company that product groups have different buckets they're going into, this could throw off all kinds of stuff.
I think you're bringing up a really good point here, and I'm not sure if you mean to, but the point that I'm hearing you make is sometimes it's to your advantage to not have a default.
Yes.
Because you're forcing the user to make a choice rather than just letting them accept a bad choice by default.
Right. And unfortunately, there are some things, and we'll get to that when we show item on the fly. There are some instances where the data that maybe you want them to set or make a choice on isn't available there by default. So you can, we can Dyna change that screen to add some fields, I believe.
Which screen on the fly?
Item on the fly.
You can to a limited basis, and then there's some other things that you can do. Again, it's business rules. Okay, I get it. Not everybody has that, but a lot of people do. And we've had a lot of success with business rules and item on the fly, doing some of the pre-cleanup as the item's being created. And it really lowers the it really lowers the misery index. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it.
Well, because what other people will do is, and one of our customers, and she was telling me about it, she gets an email every day of every new item added to their system so she can go double checking, and we're talking 20 to 50 items a day. And
wow, that would suck if you take 2 weeks vacation.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you can do to limit that pain point after the fact is well worth asking somebody to. Basically, if you trust people enough to allow them to add items on the fly, which it is a user setting, they should be responsible enough to make good decisions.
Yeah, and or at the very least, I mean, start thinking. Look, I see a lot of companies get into this like it's either A or B, right? Like all of these things are binary choices. To a degree, they are, but you can put guardrails in place to prevent people from just blatantly doing the wrong thing. If you're watching this and you have business rules and you set up a ton of what I call derivative items, the item already exists on our system. We just need to tweak it a little bit, different finish, different length, different whatever. Talk to us. We've done a feature called copy item on the fly, where you can actually say, I want to copy my item on the fly from this other item that I know is right. And we can clean a lot of these things up. And again, we're not trying to get the misery index to 0. That's a fool's errand. And if that's the expectation you're coming into work with, you're just not going to have very many good days. But if you look at it and say, I just want to manage 80% less of this, I think that's doable. I really do.
Right. And again, we're not, well, yeah, come to us if you want some business rules.
Yeah, we're selling that. We are actively selling that.
We are, but it does allow you. I had a customer that wanted to only allow item on the fly on service item level products. Basically products they're like, hey, they had to go to Home Depot to go buy this, and we want them to be able to create it or add it to a location or whatever it is, but not everything, nothing else. So with a business rule, we set it up where if this item, and it was adding items to locations, which is a little different, it's product group. It was something we did where basically if it wasn't within this fenced off area, they didn't have permission to add it on the fly.
Right.
Even though their user permission says they do.
Mm-hmm.
We then were able to take that,
shape it a little bit. Just shape
shrink,
it.
Yeah, shrink down their available pool of issues.
We've done the same thing with inventory adjustments too, where it's inventory adjustment doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can limit people and say they can only make adjustments under this reason code.
Right. Or even at this amount.
Yeah.
It has to be saved as unapproved. So anyways, item defaults, use them sparingly.
But wisely.
Yeah. Again, obviously buy makes sense because, typically
you're buying a lot of them.
You're buying it.
Unless you have if you have a location that is mostly manufacturing, you might reverse that and say, I'm checking make by default, but not buy.
Yeah, because it is location specific. Again, I guess you could make it. No, none of this makes any sense to me. So much of this stuff makes no sense to me at all, unless you're a very specific. This location only buys 99% of their items from Black & Decker. Okay, we'll set the default supplier to Black & Decker. It just
still,
seems strange.
The price of that being wrong.
Yeah, it's just.
Oh.
So, be wary, is all I'm saying. Just be wary.
So then you've got default replenishment settings.
Now, that one I'm okay with. If you are setting this location up, if you have a DC, right, and you're bringing all your inventory in one location, and so every other location you want to set up their replenishment location as that,
okay,
you could make that argument, but most people, this is fine. But all this stuff is just,
it's scary to me.
Right,
these are a default min and max. Are you kidding me? If you have one item that's $5 and another one that's 5,000, those have dramatically different impacts on how things are going to work and how much money is going to flow out of your checking account.
I feel like the meme old guy yelling at clouds. I just
are you turning into the guy from Up? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I just don't like. Well, I'm walking like him right now. So, I may or may not be on next week's stream. We'll see how I do.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, yes, there's valid things for item defaults, but I'm more of a fan of the somebody with intelligence of not intelligence here, but just intelligence of the process should be the one adding items. I know that's not reality for a lot of people because
there's just too many to create,
Right.
And again, This is like threading a needle, because you're talking about, I mean, we're getting right to the heart of the concept of how much friction is there going to be in the business to get something done.
Right.
The answer is usually not a lot of friction, and the answer is usually not zero friction. Like, think about like an exercise bike, right? You set it to 10, you're not pedaling anywhere. You set it to 0, you're not getting any exercise. So you've got to find something where all sides of the house can kind of meet in the middle and say, all right, we can live with this. And it's different for every company. It's different at locations within a company.
Yeah, and no defaults are going to just do what you need them to do naturally. Like,
now this one I think has merit, the tax jurisdiction, because a lot of times you have like a default bucket that all jurisdictions are in because you need tax to apply to all items. This one, to me, like, this is good. This keeps you from making mistakes. I like this. Service item, I think that really is only going to play if you're using service and maintenance. To be continued on a future live stream. Is there anything else we want to talk about in here? Like any other?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't. I'm with you. I just feel like there's a lot of danger in cutting this too fine.
Yep.
All right. So, bookmark.
Now we're in the meat and potatoes.
We are. So now what we want to talk about is there are actually several different ways to create items in P21. And
not all created equal.
And they are definitely not all created equal. But there are a bunch of different ways. So we want to go over that and just kind of talk through, here are different ways to get things done in P21. And maybe some of these you know about and some of them you don't. Matt, you want to just start us off?
Yeah, I mean, let's just go through the most manual process of creating an item is item maintenance, which to me allows you to, it gives you the most control over your creating of your item. Whether it's setting certain fields required, putting business rules in place, creating them in the front end allows so much more herding of people, but it is also time consuming.
Was that herding as in like
herding
sheep
cats.
Herding, or
Cats.
hurting as in making it painful?
Both. So when you enter an item ID that does not exist, it's going to pop up a search window because it's trying to figure out.
Can't help it.
I'm
putting a dash in this just to be cheeky.
Also, if you guys notice, he's typing an underscore first. That's how you know somebody's a program guy or works in data.
Or is holding the shift key down.
Yeah, or holding the shift key.
That's all it was. It was not.
Okay.
I was not making a political statement. I was just accidentally holding down the shift key.
So this is one of those weird things, and I don't know what you can do about it, but it won't come up with anything.
I think I do. I actually think I have the solution to this.
Okay.
All right. So the problem we have right now is that the add new button is not coming up on screen.
Right.
So I think the way that you defeat that monster, although nothing happens in a vacuum, you are giving something up, is over here in user maintenance. Where is that? If we turn off defaulting to advanced search, have you tried turning it off and back on again?
The reason he's so normally he would have to go do the drop down to, I think it's item.
Yeah, it's your related pop-ups, so you have to select just the normal item.
Why they did that, I don't know.
Yeah, it should be there on both. I mean,
yeah, it really should. Or even ask me. Well, no, I wouldn't want it to pop up every time. That would probably be bad.
All right, I didn't hold the shift key down that time. See, now you get it. So here's the trade-off. Advanced search may be a really good fit for you because you want the more fields. But if you're creating a lot of items manually, the trade-off is you're going to have to advanced search, which I don't know why they don't call it item advanced. That would make sense, but it's actually item extended.
Yeah.
That's what you're defaulting to when you have advanced search turned on your user account by default. So you have to go to the normal item search, which is this, and you would get the add new button there.
Yeah, I would probably still just deal with the drop down if that was my two choices, because I would want the default. Unless my main job is to sit here and plug items in. Because even looking up items, you could potentially... Because it limits what you're inline searching then at that point, too.
It does, and that's the trade-off. You know,
yeah,
and
that would be an issue for me.
It is for me, and I don't like it, which is why all my user accounts are always set to default to advanced search. But at least now we've communicated this is what drives that.
So here's the interesting part about those defaults on item default maintenance, which are location specific.
They don't work here.
They don't work here because you have to set a default at the top, which is not a location specific. And when you add a location, it's going to pull it from those, not from item defaults.
These live streams would go a lot faster if you would stop trying to inject logic into the process.
All right, sorry. All right. Now, track lots is checked because our item defaults are set to...
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
All right. Do me a favor, put a short code and put an extended description, because we're going to use this item for the next one, which is copy to a new item, and I want to show you just to call out some of the things to think about when you do that. So just put anything in the extended description. It'll all make sense later.
Okay, got it.
My biggest piece of advice is, now there are certain things you'll have to do before you can go down to the bottom, but you should do everything you can at the top before you go to the bottom, especially the supplier stuff.
That really lowers the pain threshold if you do all that at the top first.
Right,
yes.
because if there's, and this is assuming there's only one supplier. If there's only one supplier or a main supplier, do that one first.
Yep, then come back and add your other ones.
Right, because when we have a supplier on there and we create it, it will make it the default supplier for every location that we add.
It will do all the work for you. So,
right.
Yeah.
Unit info, I believe, is required before you move on.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is not a good time to talk about base UOMs because we already made that a different subject. So I'll shut up and we'll keep moving on.
Yep. All these boxes have to be checked on something.
Do we want to set multiples up on this one, or you just want to?
No, I think we'll dive into that more when we're talking about just unit of measures.
Got it.
It deserves that. Alternate codes, I think we'll talk about more. They're what they sound like. They're alternate codes.
Yeah.
If you decide to make a naming change on your item codes, it allows you to use the old one in there just for muscle memory.
Yeah.
For lack of better or anything else.
Merges and item ID changes can also do this by default if you so choose, where you're still retaining the ability to enter some other item ID and it brings this correct one up.
Conversion, I think we talked about I think it's one of our topics we're going to cover.
For purchasing, yeah.
For purchase. It's a whole beast and not really used a lot. Default pricing, if you are using price 1 through whatever, if it's the same price at every location, cool, set these up here, and every location you add will pull those pricings down. I
just want to throw this in. For those of you using multi-currency, when you have locations in multiple countries, price 1 through 10 at the location level is based on the home currency of that location. So just keep that in mind. All right. Supplier list. Not supplier list price. It literally just means list of suppliers.
Right.
Black & Decker, since you said that. I don't think they actually make Palmolive, though.
Nothing else really to do on here. If you do ever want to delete a supplier, I believe it cannot be set as a primary, and there can't be any open POs for that item.
Yeah, there may be some other validations in there, but
there's some other validations, but
yeah, those are the big ones.
Yep. Supplier detail. Now, if you're on your supplier list, whichever supplier you were on when you then click on supplier detail,
that's the one that comes up. Yeah.
That's the one you're coming up.
Yep. You can scroll down a little bit and just navigate back and forth. Okay. Next.
I mean, if you have your supplier item IDs, put them in there.
Yeah. And that becomes important, especially, I mean, it's important for a lot of reasons. Number one, it allows you to enter POs using the supplier part number, which I like. Or actually even potentially sales orders. Mm-hmm. Another thing is, and this to me is the biggest one, it allows you to transmit the supplier's part number to them on the PO, which, again, reduces opportunities for error because you're speaking to them in their own language.
I'll do you one better than that. It's when they send you a price sheet, and it's their item IDs, not yours.
Yep.
You can use pricing service or what other form you want to use to
update based on supplier part number. Yeah, right. That's huge.
But be careful. It is not a unique ID field. If you, not speaking from personal experience at all, if you happen to have 200 item IDs that have all the same supplier part number for some reason, that does cause an issue.
That would be horrible. How would you even unravel that?
A lot of work.
200 times.
A lot of work.
All right. Catalog name and catalog page. I am starting to run into customers that are using this. It's my background really doesn't lend itself to using this, so I don't have a lot of frame of reference for it, but we do see it used.
Yeah, I do. I've had a couple people just cross my path talking about it. I do feel like it's one of those areas that I would like to learn a little bit more about it. List price, cost. Cost is very important. List price you may or may not be using, but you should put it in there even if you're not.
If there is a supplier list price for that item, I think it's good to have it in there. The biggest thing is right here. These numbers are always in terms of this unit of measure and unit size,
which will come into play when we cover all unit of measure information. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
The cost part, and we've done this on another live stream talking about cost, but depending on how you set your suppliers up for costing, even if you're setting them up at location costs, you still should put a cost in this field because it becomes your backup if you don't have a cost at a location.
Yeah, and Matt always does a good job of making this point. I'm just going to beat him to it for once because it'll make me sound smart. But if you've got 10 locations and 9 of them have the same list price or same cost, just fill this in and then just change the one location one that's different.
Yeah, the way they do it's not clear, they don't spell it out. It's a hierarchy, right? It looks in this spot, oh, that's a 0, and then it goes and looks in this spot.
Yep.
So, and again, for me, if you have the information, why wouldn't you put it in?
Absolutely.
For this type of stuff.
Especially if you can upload it,
Right, yeah. UPC code, keep in mind you do not enter in the last
the check
12th
digit. Yeah.
The check digit. P21 will do the math for you.
Yeah, this is the 11 or 14 character UPC code. That is validated when you try to put it in. You can only do 11 or 14 characters.
If for some reason they're using their own barcode numbering system, you can always put that in as an alternate code as well.
Yeah.
Which Wireless Warehouse will...
It has barcode learning, so it can actually kind of make those associations.
And it'll tell you, hey, this isn't a UPC. Do you want to make it an alternate code?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think we did a stream of that a couple of weeks ago.
We did. That's actually how I know about it. I had never touched barcode learning until we did that stream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No joke.
EN
I
code.
think that's another derivative of barcoding. SDS, I believe, is the safety data sheet.
Yep.
Contract number. This does show up on the PO. So if you are buying on supplier contracts and stuff, this is good to put on there. This field I also know is transmitted through EDI. So if a supplier's pricing has dependencies on certain contracts or whatever, this is a good way to do it. This is also just something to think about. Vendor is who you pay. Supplier is who you buy from, right?
Who supplies you?
Weird. They should call it something like that. We have seen very successful strategies of saying we have the same swath of items that we can buy from the supplier on a different contract at a lower price. So we set up another supplier just for that contract, add those items, and have that contract number populated so that when that PO gets transmitted, it comes through with that contract number and the pricing is accepted. I'm not saying it's the most beautiful, efficient way to do it, but it works. We have item notes for each contract. Wow, that field wasn't in the... This will... I think Soyo is so excited she fell on the floor.
Which field is that?
I'm thinking contract field, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
I'm just gonna heart the comment and hope that was the right thing to do. Oh no, I'm not. Wow. I just lost my chat. It wants me to sign in.
Well, that's not good.
No.
It's not. It was not in the application.
Back. Okay, I got it back. The contract helped tremendously. Yes. Oh, cool. We just moved into the cloud 2 weeks ago. Yeah. No. Hey, we feel you. That's a bad day.
That's a different soapbox.
Yeah.
Certificate of origin. Obviously, if you're dealing with things that you need that pertinent
Yeah.
information.
Yep. That's there, and when it expires, and what the country of origin is. That stuff is all available.
Substitutes. I think we're gonna do.
Yeah, we had this, and I definitely want to get into this because again, very underutilized feature.
Substitutes and accessory items are kind of the same idea, as far as helping your sales guys out. With
This
upselling or
cross-selling or just taking care of the customer. Really,
right.
It's just taking care of the customer.
Lot. We are definitely going to be doing a full stream.
That is its own thing for sure.
Lots, cereals, and all that stuff. All right. Another pet peeve of mine. Catch weight. Do not check that box. You'll get nothing but bad information in there. Basically, the point of the catch weight is, and I'm trying to remember where it triggers it, but there's somewhere it will. I think it might be at receiving, where if you don't have your net weight,
there's tries to force you to put it in or something.
It says put it in. So what will people do? They will just
one.
Right. So it doesn't know that 1 is not the right answer. So just when you set your items up, put them. And honestly, if you can do the length, width, and height, especially if you're, and maybe you want to make those based off of cases, or because that can come into play when you're talking about filling out a truck or shipment or hitting vendor goals.
You know what would make catch weight work really well? If you could find a developer that could integrate a network-based scale with P21.
I think I know somebody that has integrated a scale into some pretty hefty programs.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, that's good to know if that ever comes up.
Minimum, put whatever you're tracking your weight usage, which I love that there's a company-wide setting for that, but you can change it at the item level. I don't know why you would one particular item. Whatever. Classes, we kind of talked about a little bit.
Yep.
One of my favorite things for using them for is, again, almost every report in P21 allows you to use classes as a criteria. We used them as we would have class 1 would be like a much larger group of items
I
or
like
part
that.
of the
Yeah.
industry.
Yep.
And then class 2 maybe would break it down into even
Each
like
class
more
gets a little more granular. Yeah, I like that a lot.
and you know, your mileage may vary. Now we've talked about the before. Class 5 used to be meant for
B2B
ECC.
seller.
Yeah.
Now it's got its own thing now, or at least ECC has its own thing. But historically, people that were on B2B seller would have to reserve class 5 to identify something as a web item. There's a lot of legacy with that. I think the people that are affected by that are in a group, and that group gets a little smaller by the day.
And some people may use them to, like, we had people that, hey, if any item has this in class 3, we want X, Y, and Z to happen to it when we enter an order. So links, I don't even know what links are. What are links again?
Okay, so this is kind of a precursor to document links, but you can put like image links and stuff like that in here. I've seen it used a little bit, not a lot. Most people are just using document links now, but I mean, there's still some.
Now, you know, talking about stuff like ribbon metrics and stuff like that in displaying an image, would you have to store it here, or can you set that up? You know, like, you know, the little things at the top.
I actually don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I've never really experimented with those much. I was just curious. What's under the 3 dots? And you'll notice by default, as you go, they typically become less. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, not everybody's going to be using all these things.
Right.
Restore to defaults. Document links. That's pretty self-explanatory. Atom catalogs we'll talk about. Well, it's the whole catalog thing. Keywords. It's a big repository dump of just like, is it meant keywords like on internet browsing keywords or?
All right, so I'm trying to just be nice right now. It's hard for me, but no, I think keywords to me, like the best use case I have for this would be, I think it's valuable if you want to load this with things that you want to push to your e-commerce site. I know it has applications below that. I don't need a bunch of torches and pitchforks and stuff showing up at my door, but it is a big field. It's just I don't think it's particularly performant from a search perspective, but I do like it for, like, if if you're using it to just establish taxonomies and things like that, I think that's fine. But I usually just see it being the dumping ground for, we didn't know what to do with this data conversion, so we're going to drop it in keywords, and then it's useless.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's where I'm at with it.
What else we got? Yeah.
Yes.
General tip: if you never use any of these fields, just right-click and close them.
Yeah. So, like, if you don't use links, close the tab.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if you use them all the time, right-click and pin the tab.
Yeah.
So that is sticky. All right. Package types. Oh, we figured out where this gets used, and I don't remember where it was. Might have been in scan and pack or something.
Yeah.
And then problem codes. All I know about problem codes is we had somebody that wanted us to develop a solution around it, and we ended up talking them out of it.
I don't know why you would need a specific problem code.
I would hate to have to try to manage it at the...
Yeah.
I don't know.
That seems like a very specific somebody requested.
Yeah. Item restrictions, now that does have some use. Like, if you're into products that, for instance, can only be sold to people that are licensed, can only be sold in certain geographies, whatever that is. There's a whole feature around item restrictions. Maybe we put that on the list someday. I don't know. But that is a feature unto itself.
That would be one of those ones that I would learn something, because
I messed with them once for acupuncture needles. Yeah. You know how much regulation there is around acupuncture needles? It's pretty horrifying. Anyway, sorry. Little, yeah. And then supplier unit info. Okay, this allows you to create. What do I want to say here, Matt? It allows you to create associations between your UOM and a supplier's UOM.
Right.
We say EA, they say EACH. We say case, they say carton. Whatever. That's what this is.
But it prevents you from having to create a bunch of arbitrary unit of measures.
No one does that. What are you talking about? That never
nobody,
happens.
Nobody does that. Nobody does case 12, 6, 8, 14 and a half.
9.
Niner.
We're on a roll today.
Yeah, we are.
All right. Moving on.
All right. So
getting out of control. We didn't talk about product type. Let me just mention that right quick. For product type, you have lot group, which I think that is a lot billing feature. You have regular,
but it is not. It is not lot item related.
Right. No, this is a feature called lot bill.
Right.
So,
right. Which is very not big, not used a lot.
No, it's not. Service contract items, subtotal items, that gets into, you can create an item that says subtotal everything up to the next subtotal. That's actually not a horrible feature if you play with it some. And then temporary items, and the difference between a temporary item and a regular item is really nothing.
It's just a way to group them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that.
Scroll down on the top for me, and do not click on that, because last time you did and didn't let me show something.
I'm not clicking on anything. Just closing these.
Hazardous material, that's tied to that SDS. I don't know if you're somebody that deals with a lot of hazardous stuff and you have questions about SDS,
so
maybe.
I've done it once. I've done hazmat stuff one time, and it got into the concept of setting up hazmat for that Prop 65 thing in California, and using that to determine whether or not something would get a Prop 65 warning. Yeah,
and you theoretically can set it up so it uses, like, if you have an SDS that you always need to send when you're sending this type of product, it can print or email. Again, I think it's too narrow of a topic for us to cover on a stream, because I haven't talked to one person I work with here that uses hazardous material. So, but reach out to us if you do. All right, now we want to add things to locations. So instead of typing a location in, we're going to double click into the location ID. And the reason I want to do that is because this allows you to go ahead and grab whichever locations you want to add. So that way you don't have to type in 10, then type in 20. You can pick all the ones you want to add and click OK. You can also right click and deselect all, or select all, whatever you want to do.
Oh, you can actually add another company to it.
Oh. You know what? Do we have multiple companies in this system?
I don't remember.
That is interesting. Okay, well, while you're doing that...
No, we do not.
Okay, so items are one of the only few things in P21 that does not require you to create a unique record for each company.
Right. They are, yes, it is a shared item master for sure.
Customers, suppliers, users.
We have had situations where a company deploys with multiple companies. So each business unit is their own company, and they all sell similar items. They're all coming from different systems, and we have to get them to all agree on what the part numbers are going to be. Mm-hmm. I gave up and decided to try to get everybody to order pizza instead. That worked out a lot better. Wow. I'm still in shell shock.
Now you'll notice Stockable is not pre-checked.
It's a choice.
For a reason.
It's not a default.
Not a default. Interesting enough, sellable is not one of those flags that you can mark as a item default in default maintenance. By default, it makes everything sellable. Now, why would you want something not sellable? Maybe you're buying this for manufacturing shop, or maybe you're whatever. Maybe
it's a
you're using
component.
as
It's an internal use item. It's something that, you know, like, hey, we buy tons and tons of raw steel, but we don't sell raw steel. We sell the stuff that we make out of it.
The issue is, we used it once when it was like, hey, I want to make sure we're not putting this on sales rolls right now. We have an issue that we need to figure out. And it was a quick and dirty way to make it not sellable.
It's effective.
Right. But anyways.
Okay. And then make that, whether or not you can make it. Requisition. Can it be put on a requisition PO? Discontinued. There are options of how you can deal with this in system settings, but let's just say in general terms, discontinued means you can sell what you have. You cannot buy more of it. Now there are options that will allow you to put it on a director special, but not bring it back into inventory. So I like the feature. People hate on it a lot. I'm not really sure why, but I kind of like it. I think it's got merit for what it's used for, but you know.
I've only run into it as an issue. There were certain things that it wouldn't allow you to do that didn't make sense. Like, I don't know if it was bin movements or there was something that it wouldn't allow us to use it. It might have been as a component. There was something strange.
I can see that
we couldn't use the discontinued, so we had to.
But I could see it not allowing you to add it to an assembly.
Yeah.
You know, that maybe I've never tested that. But that's possible.
Anyways.
Okay. Location detail.
Did you put that product group in there? Oh no, it pulled it from defaults.
Yes, it pulled it from item default maintenance.
Hate that.
You had a whole Minecraft creeper thing going there for a second.
Sorry. I don't think really we kind of talked about all those already. Price family. Again, if we had a default price family set up, it would pop. One thing I would say is there are certain fields that no matter what you do, they're required. You don't have a choice. There are a lot of fields that are not required, but if they're required for your business, make them required using Dynachange. We made default price family required for us because it was critical to the way we were doing our pricing. So anyways, track bin we talked about.
I want to cover default and order entry. A lot of people don't know what that means. If you check that checkbox, that item will appear on every sales order ever.
But it doesn't show up with a quantity. So if you save, it'll fall off the order.
Awesome.
FYI.
It still shows up on every order.
Now, I will say, we kind of skipped over one thing top, and it kind of plays into this. We use it here sometimes for fees or things we're adding to orders as an other charge item, where we will always have it add to an order, and if that order doesn't qualify for a fee when they save, it just falls off.
That sounds like somebody could use that for a surcharge thing, and it would be.
I just said that.
Pretty straightforward.
I just said that.
I know. I'm feeling a little shell shocked right now about something. So
now, if you did, you can set its own pricing and stuff like that. But like I said, the problem is it doesn't put a quantity on it. I don't believe.
Yeah.
Or maybe you know what? We might have modified that for the rule. I don't remember.
Or you could just set it with the default zero price. I don't know. I mean, but like, okay, but here's a good use case for it. Okay, like if
catalog.
Yeah, I was going to use Uline as an example, and by the way, if anyone from Uline ever watches this video, please stop sending me catalogs. If I need your stuff, I'll buy it from the website. You're losing money because I don't buy enough stuff to justify having a catalog sent to me every 2 months. I'm just putting it out there. Okay. I'm sorry. That just drives me nuts. Anyway, tax. Same thing. This is the tax group thing that we were talking about earlier. You see your prices, they got filled in 1, 2, 3, because that's what we set up top.
Okay, so those settings that you do control here.
Yeah.
They do make, but if you go set up a contract, I can still use those prices.
Didn't we play with this one time and do like this? And it worked? No, it didn't work. Okay.
No, it's contracts that it works on.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure.
Even though you can't put anything in there.
Yeah, it did not work. Okay. Also, all of these prices are in terms of your default sales unit, and it tells you that. So just be mindful that that's what that means. That's how that works. All right. Cost.
If you are using a standard cost, this is where you would put it. Last PO cost gets updated every time you
receive a PO. Yeah.
I think
it works a couple of different ways. You've got one that updates on the last time you receive a PO. You've also got another one that shows what the cost of the next PO that's due in is. So that's actually a good one. But yeah. All right. Then usage. This is important for advanced forecasting. So, and up to stuff like that. It doesn't really matter for, it's disabled if the item's not stockable.
Right.
Which is a choice, not a default. That's what I've heard.
It is definitely a choice. Replenishment, I don't really want to spend too much time on that just because we have talked about purchasing at nauseum. There is a required field in there, though, which is the replenishment location has to be filled out.
Yep.
Again, it's one of the item defaults I'm okay with because 9 times out of 10, most people's replenishment location is the same location that they're setting up. So I have no issues. So you have my permission to use that in item defaults.
Oh, well, that's all I've ever wanted out of life.
All that other stuff is all to do with purchasing and replenishment, obviously, because it's called replenishment. We talk about that at nauseum in other videos.
GL accounts, this is if you're going to override this, but this will get filled in based on your product groups, I believe. But your product group, in product group maintenance, you will control what account gets used. Supplier by location. So this is what Matt was talking about earlier of doing all the work at the top of the screen kind of helps you at the bottom of the screen. All of this stuff got automatically filled in. We didn't have to do anything. So
yeah, every location has to have a primary supplier set up. You can have as many locations as as many suppliers are up top can all be assigned to each location down at the bottom. They don't have to be, but at least one of them has to be a primary.
Yep.
And each location can also have its own contract number, it just like it does in the supplier detail. It's one of the fields on there.
Right there. Yeah, and that is like just again for newer P21 folks. Every item location must have a primary supplier. And an item location may only have one primary supplier. So you must have one and only one, basically.
But you can still purchase the items from these other suppliers and still set up their, it'll still pull from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Technically in P21, it'll allow you to buy anything from anybody. It'll just tell you, hey, this item's not, which I never understood that.
Well, there's no other way we're getting Palmolive soap from Black & Decker anyway, so.
Right. Yeah. Well, it is because we set it up.
That's right.
Don't really need to go through all this other stuff. Processing is very specific if you're...
It is, and I definitely want to put a pin in that for the future. I think this is a feature, if people understood it better, it could help them out.
Yeah. It's not processes as in production processing.
No.
Right?
This is a special type of... This is like a key way to deal with suppliers that keep stepping on landmines. It really is. If you're having QC problems, this is a great way to manage it. And then VMI, actually never fooled with this. I'm assuming it's hyper specific for if I think this is if you have a VMI with your supplier.
Yeah.
So I've not ever really had to mess with it. All right, so let's save some soap.
I think this is a natural break for us to take a quick break.
Absolutely. So we're going to take 5, and we will be back momentarily.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, we're back. Yeah, I just noticed that the background music is not in the "We'll be right back" scene, so we're going to add that to the template. All right, we are back.
Did you make a mark before we left for break?
No,
About
but
a
I can
break.
make one now. It's fine. It's cool, man. We're good. No, I was actually sitting here thinking about the state of Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah. And the amount of inspiration that this company has drawn from that state. And this is how it's manifested itself. Every customer I've ever visited in the state of Indiana has an amazing snack room. Like you go into this one room, whether it's their kitchen or their break room or whatever it is, and there are snacks everywhere. And I'm not talking like the crappy saltwater taffy you give to the kids you don't like at Halloween. I'm like top shelf. Keurig cups for days, all of that. So here we finally have said we're going full Indiana on our snacks area at the office. And we go to Publix every couple of weeks to restock it. We just went yesterday, and life is so much better now.
Did my care package get lost for my stock room?
I ate it.
I mean,
I got like orange flavored LaCroix, goldfish crackers, the little Halo oranges. I never have to leave.
Anyways,
I don't think there's anything wrong with having a conversation about snacks, but point taken. All right, pushing the bookmarker. All right, so let's talk some more about creating items, but this time we want to copy items, right?
you need to share your screen.
Dramatic effect. I'm trying to make this a professional production.
Well, we failed.
Yeah. No, this is definitely not a professional production.
All right.
This is the opposite of that. Okay. So you tell me what to do, because I know you have a thing about me clicking all over the screen.
Well, let's pull up. So copying an item is very useful if, again, this is if you're manually setting up items, though. Actually, I think it's the only way to copy items, right? The benefit is if I'm buying 10 different widgets from the same supplier, all the locations are still set up. They have all the same unit of measures, but there's slight variances, right? Maybe it's a different color. Maybe it's a different size. There's going to be differences. But I don't want to have to set up all that stuff we just went through. You can copy the item and then update key pieces of data to make sure you're not just regurgitating the same data. Because it only forces you to change 2 bits of data. And that's what I want to kind of show you, that you still need to go do some cleanup. Excuse me. So to copy an item, you right click, copy to new item. You obviously have to have the item pulled up. So this is where we're going to enter our new item ID and our new description. And this is the short description, or what they just call the description.
All right, so this is going to be staying with our Palmolive.
Now, the warning on here is telling you that once you hit create item, it's committing it.
Yeah.
It's creating it to the database. So there are a lot of things in P20, like sales orders. You could be in it, entering stuff, and if you hit clear, it never actually hits the database. This is creating a database record. So if you do something by mistake, you're going to have to soft delete it.
Start over. Yep. Okay.
When it comes to the item ID, everything else is editable. So like if you made a mistake in the description, you can obviously change that. But the item ID you can't change. Now, the reason I had you do the short code and the extended description is because those carry over exact. So if you are using the extended description that has details pertaining to, thread, finished material, all these different things that don't pertain to this antibacterial one, you need to update those as well.
But that could also be part of your description strategy, right? Like if you set, can you adopt a part description strategy where the repeatable information is in the extended description? Again, you just a little things that if you can plan that out far enough in advance, you can reduce friction forever, essentially.
Right.
Go ahead.
But can you go to the unit info? This is the one. And again, I know we've harped about unit, but make sure if you're copying an item, they share like unit of measures, because if not, you're just going to have more cleanup to do.
For real.
But I think it carry over everything. So supplier detail, does it carry over the pricing and everything?
Not everything. And I messed up. I should have put list and cost in because I want to say that those two things don't carry over.
Okay.
I think. I don't. You know what? That is actually really important, and we're going to test that in just a minute. What else?
That's the whole function of copying. It's just, and I don't want to go through every single tab to figure out which ones you need to make sure you update, but you'll know what you need to update.
All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to copy this to a new item, and it's going to be 16 this time.
But that's kind of that. What you just did there is the perfect way to use this, where you're slightly changing some stuff.
Yep.
But the problem is there's nothing that's going to hold your hand to tell you what you should change and update.
It keeps it. Ugh.
And that's what I was worried about. It pretty much keeps everything except for item ID and item description.
I was thinking something in here got wiped out. Maybe it's the supplier part number. I don't remember what it is, though. Kind of bugs me.
So use it sparingly.
But it's effective. I mean, it
is.
It really is. I like that. Okay, cool. So, now that we've kind of have accidentally created that scenario with a short code, if I just go in here and do Palm 12, boom. It's going to say, well, which one do you mean? And so this is what I like about a one-to-many strategy with short code is this is going to, if you're in a situation where you have a lot of derivative items and people keep setting them up over and over and over again, this can help you fix that problem. Because just get them to search for the short code and then they get to pick from a list which one they meant. And life gets better for everybody. I know it's not perfect. I know, but again, if you have 100 repeats a month and you can knock it down to 50, wouldn't you rather? Anyway, okay. Enough on. So I think we've done that one. Bookmark. All right.
Item on the fly?
Item on the fly.
Let's go to user maintenance first. Now, there's two different kinds of items on the fly. We probably need to set another item up that is only at one location.
Do you need a pilot's license to use this?
Yes.
That was a terrible joke.
It was really bad. So there's two kinds of item on the fly. One is, and there's different settings that control both. One is adding existing item to your sales location that you're placing the order for, and the other one is straight out just creating a brand new item.
Right.
So the one he's highlighting there, that's for adding existing items to your location.
Now, we have found that with this setting, the thing that usually trips this whole setting up is our customers want certain roles to be able to do it. We have done that. Not easy, but doable.
Via business rules.
Yeah, of course. Okay. creating items at order entry or service order entry. So they can create temporary items, regular items, or no items, or both. So we'll leave it at both.
And like I said, they're just let's create a new item that only has one location. Because we need that.
Okay, yeah, I know where you're going. Okay, cool.
We're just going to try to put the bare minimum in here.
I'm going to do it as quickly as possible.
Hey, look at that. What you're going to see is the bare minimum required to create said item, which I believe is just those groups, a unit, and a supplier. I think that's it.
That was a bad choice. Yeah, that everything else should have defaulted in. Yeah, I win.
So you can see how little information it actually needs to have an item created in the system.
Yep. Which is good and bad.
I know. Mm-hmm.
Good and bad. Good and bad. All right. OE?
OE, yep.
Doesn't really work that way, does it?
Now, when we do our menu designer
I
stream,
know.
We'll be able to show people how that works.
Absolutely.
Actually, if you would have hit O space E, it would have worked.
I apologize.
That's why when I type in porg, I type PO space R space G.
All right.
Let's just start an order, sir. All right. Let's do the add location. So change that to 20 first, because it's already at location. So his sales location is 20. We're going to add. Now, you notice it doesn't come up in the smart search because it doesn't exist for this location. It's pretty self-explanatory. Yes or no. That's it. Nothing else gets set up. There's nothing else required. It doesn't allow you to make any changes to the item, and I think it creates the record at that time. So if you do that and don't hit save on the order, it's still
going to be on the item. That's correct.
So it's the same idea as copy item, right? Once you are telling the system, yes, this is an item, it's an item. And again, we have... Again, it's why I don't like all or not features on some of this stuff, because I can see a use case where that's fine. I can see a lot of cases where it's not fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. That's as simple as it is to add it to a location.
That's all I have to say about that.
So now we're actually going to do an item on the fly.
Eventually. Oh, there we go.
Eventually. And it's actually easier to create an item on the fly than it is in item maintenance.
Which is kind of a problem.
Yes.
Okay. So you've got some options here. They can add an item. They can add a temp item, which distinction without a difference. And they can also add an assembly. So, there you go.
Now I will say this though. I believe this is still popping up for you this way because you have advanced search turned off.
Yes, correct. If I was using advanced search, it would look like this and be completely useless.
So it's item.
Whoa.
You just broke something. It's just item. So, you just really broke it. So if you don't see the button...
The nerve of me wanting to search a different way.
If you don't see the button, then just change your drop down to item, and then the buttons will be there. Again, why they're just not there... P21 going to P21. Did you really break it?
Broke it into oblivion.
All right, we're going to just close this down because There's probably a server in the back that's like on fire right now.
I think I hear the fan spooling up. Oh man.
What version is this database?
It's like 23.1. I mean, it's not that old, bro. It's not that old. Oh, come on.
And no, our password is not password.
Oh, of course not. It's password 1. What do you think? I'm crazy?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4.
That sounds like something an idiot would put on their luggage. Oh my god!
Airplane 1 or airplane
no, that was Spaceballs.
Oh, it was Spaceballs.
I have not watched that in forever.
I've got to change my. Remind me to change my luggage. Sorry.
All right. Let's see. I'm not getting anything done now.
Nope.
Orders. All right.
Sorry, I realized I was crunching ice.
Hey, it's all,
My bad.
It's all good, man. All right, we are going to add new without messing with anything else. Okay. I'm assuming that the next field is description, though it doesn't really tell you that that's what it's supposed to be.
I hate so much about this right now. So much I hate about this.
All right.
One being unit of measure and one being... Because here's...
Breathe.
It just assumes every the unit measure here is going to be your whatever. Just add.
Well, isn't this what we set up in defaults maintenance?
Because we had to. You have to have a base unit of measure as a default. It will not let you save an item location default without a unit of measure. I don't know why.
You should put that in a suggestion box somewhere.
Yeah. Anyways, product group. So this is what's in there by default. Let's do a quick data change on that. I want to see what else we can.
Yeah, because that there's no risk we're going to break anything doing this now.
No.
I'd say. Oh, those are actually editable. I like that.
Okay.
So
Do
yeah,
cost.
we could put a couple of classes on there. We could do
List price, cost. Does it actually work up top?
Oh, sorry. Let me see. That's got to be supplier cost. Yep.
Okay. I mean,
this actually looks a lot more complete than it did the last time I looked at this list. I don't know if this has been updated in the last few years or not. There's actually quite a bit here.
I mean, you could almost make this easier to set up and actually hit all the pertinent data you want, because it's now. I will say this: we have created tools for some of our customers for things like creating ship tos and other things that allow us to, we're using visual business rules that allow us to basically handhold a user through the creation process, whether it's customer ship to or item creation. But there are more options you can do here. The problem still comes down to whoever's doing this has to know what they're actually doing. Because if they just willy-nilly put stuff in, or can you make stuff required too?
You should be able to.
Nope.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Nope.
Now I wonder if it's one of those things where you have to save it first, then go, because there is some of those
No.
features where you
Well, that one was already on there, so let's try that.
one was already. We are going to do a stream on basic data change and navigation and things like that. So if that's something you're interested in,
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. And we do have a couple snippet videos of that we put up there, but we'll go into a little bit more detail on how to use it. Let's cancel and start.
You know, that is a phrase that there is literally no digital equivalent for. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can't replicate. You can't update that.
Stay notified. Stay
Yeah.
bell clicked.
Oh gosh, I hate that, man. I can't do it. I can't beg.
Me
for
too.
people to
But
hit the
if you
button.
are subscribed, make sure you click the notify ring bell button. All right, so let's
I mean,
go back to
that's
the
pretty
change.
cool.
All right, because this didn't used to be the way it was. It used to be
No,
very
this
limited.
is a lot better. It really is. Yes.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, so
All right.
new project for you guys. Do some homework of what you want on here, and if you can't do it, we can help you.
Another potential project here. Just again, something to think about if this fits your business. You may not want everyone on the planet doing item on the fly. That's fine. But if this is a less painful way to get an item in, then just assign item on the fly rights to people that should have item creation and let them use this to do it.
Yeah.
Might be better. You know?
So let's.
Okay,
right,
I'm going to close that, and
Yep.
I'm going to close that, and then, okay. There we go. Creating a new item. Nope.
Now, there are things on this screen that you can't see that it's still going to fill in. Like it's still filling in default discount groups.
Right,
sales
and we
department.
could have added those,
Right.
but we didn't.
We did. That is interesting. I do like that the unit size is, because you have to have one that is a 1.
Yep. I'm telling you, I see potential right here that like normally I would say this is just okay. But
Yeah.
if you think about like the copy on the fly feature that we built would be so much better with all these additional fields.
Yep.
I mean, it would be amazing. All right. So it's in.
That's it. And if we go, it's committed to the database. So if we go look that up in item master inquiry,
And I mean,
it's there.
and because like that supplier has one-time supplier list as the pricing schema, like it's already pricing the item correctly and everything right out of the gate. That's actually really good. I really like that.
All right, I changed my opinion on item on the fly.
Yeah,
with modification and guardrails.
Yes, both
Item
of those
defaults
things.
still stink.
Okay, your objection is noted. All right.
So those are all of the front end UI facing ways that I know of to add items into P21. Obviously, you can do the same thing in service order entry, item on the fly. That's an option as well, but it works the same. The other two ways are more. They're not going to be for your common CS to do.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here trying to decide, do these two topics really, do we want to go full on into that here now?
No, and I think we actually, I think we made when we went through our ideas, I think importing was one that we wanted to spend some time on.
Yeah.
And definitely pricing service, because there's so much more involved. They warrant, and they may not be a 3 or 4 hour stream, but they warrant a good solid 2 hours of understanding the ups and downs. And I don't think we would touch enough on those to do it justice.
I agree with that. And so let's just leave it at, you have really two main methods of import. You have the standard import that is used from imports exports, which I think the minimum number of files required to do that import is 5. You would have to put together 5 text files, maybe it's 6, to put that together.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, but you can also be extremely detailed.
No, yeah.
The other way to do it is with pricing service by setting up a template, and I think that reduces the number of required fields to 15 or thereabouts.
I don't even know if it's that many fields.
It's quite a few. Now, some of those may default in from item defaults, but you can set up templates for quickly creating a bunch of items that way as well. And then, you have other programmatic ways of doing it, like the API or whatever. So,
right. But from your standard end user point of view, entering them in item maintenance, copy to new item on the fly, those are your main ways for adding items to your system.
Yeah, for sure. The next topic we have on this is item maintenance, but I feel like we just did.
Yeah. I don't think the only thing I would call back to item maintenance after creating an item is that's where the audit trail for that item lives. It doesn't live in item master inquiry. The screen.
Do you have an issue with that?
I do, because the whole point of item master inquiry is to give you all the information you need on that item, except for the information in the audit trail.
Oh, why would you need that? Why would you need to know when, who, and how cost was changed on an item?
I don't know. It just seems strange, because hopefully, if you're a big enough company, if you're a small company, everybody wears many hats, but hopefully you have, using roles, you have access to item maintenance, you don't have access to item maintenance. But maybe some part of their job is to research something that's in the audit trail. I don't know. It just seems like a weird.
I don't disagree. I think there is a little bit to be desired right there.
But that's the only other thing I would say about item maintenance is it's also if there was a MAT cost change, that's where you would find it. Item master inquiry, or F2 on your keyboard if you're keeping track at home, it's
the master inquiry screen for items.
And did we do inquiry screens as their own?
We did, but I think with what we want to do with these templates, let's spend some time. Let's walk through item master inquiry on its own. I did.
Yeah, I mean, item master inquiry, for me, it was always useful as the person that was in charge of figuring out what the heck happened. Or it's the first place I go if somebody says, hey, I have 20 of these in stock, but I can't do anything with them. This is where you go to find out who's allocated to, it also gives you a screenshot into the purchasing of this item. I mean, it's everything, almost everything other than the audit trail.
I'm going to laugh if that's been put in. It has not. I'm not going to laugh.
One of my favorite tabs on here is the Who Bought What Lot tab.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll cover a lot of stuff. But it's essentially every open sales order, every closed sales order, every PO. Like, there's all kinds of different options on these tabs. You could literally spend an hour just talking about all these tabs.
That's what we're actually supposed to be doing.
Oh. Boy,
that is the point of this live stream, actually. Believe it or not.
Hey, I didn't know that was how that was supposed to work.
So let's spend an hour talking about it. All right, right off the top. If you get into the criteria screen, you can narrow this to locations. There's also a system setting that makes it default to your home location that's set up on your
system or user setting.
I thought it was a system setting. Now you're gaslighting me, and I have to go find out.
I think it's user.
I think it's system.
You'd find it much quicker if you just went to user, because that's where it lives.
Wow, dude.
Man, I hope I'm right. If I'm not, that's gonna suck.
Let's see.
Oh, dang. Oh, that's company. That's company. That's company. That's not your because you can have a assigned location.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what the user setting says.
I'll say we're both right. How about that? You don't even need to go into user maintenance. Like, you don't need to go in there. It's fine.
No, it's fine. No, I mean you're very, very confident that this is where we're gonna find all the keys to the universe. So.
I can tell you exactly. It's at the bottom right.
Default the user's location. Okay. Do these work in tandem? Are they? I don't know.
I don't.
Okay. Well, that little side quest finished. One thing about this screen that a lot of people miss because they just don't know it's there is right-click, refresh data. It's great. I mean, again, if you've made a change somewhere, you want to get right back in and look at this, just refresh data, just kind of forcibly reloads everything.
One thing I don't understand, why are the classes in the extended description on the criteria tab? Because once you enter your criteria...
Yeah, it's flipping to the other. I don't know. I don't know. Now, one last thing, though, is even though this looks grayed out, you can also control the start date, which there's a default for that. I'm assuming it's in system settings, but yes. Master of user maintenance.
It is system settings, yes.
Okay. You can control like how far back you're looking at all these transactions and everything. Again, this drives to system performance, so 9999 is not a setting. Just saying.
Yeah. And on each of the tabs, you can manipulate the dates there.
Yeah.
Which comes in handy when you have, 204 allocated. You go to open sales orders, and it shows 100.
Right.
It's most likely your date. Well, or it could be allocated to other things, but we've had this happen in my previous life where somebody fat fingered the date on a PO, and it was like 2010 or something like that. And so
did they choose DeLorean as the shipping method, or?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Cool. So if you don't see it, monkey around with the date. Eventually, you could go back to the beginning of time, 1990, and if it still doesn't show up, then you just have ghosts in the machines and run an item rebuild.
Yeah, that'll fix it.
Yeah, it fixes everything.
All right.
You land on the inventory tab, gives you the inventory at all locations. Each one of these screens is their own dyna chains, so you can manipulate them some. There's some you can't. I do advise against trying to put too much extra info in here.
One thing that we don't really have this set up well for, and let me see if I can quickly get us there. Is being able to see in different units of measure, which I think can be very helpful.
That is true.
So I want to take a quick second to set that up. See, now you have to freeze and you can't say anything or blink. That way, when I cut this, it looks seamless.
I'm totally used to doing that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
I'm sure people will watch the videos and go, man, my P21's not as fast as yours when you click on it. Yeah, because I chopped off the 30 seconds in between.
Right, yeah. There's no waiting. All right. Units. And we're going to add case. I'm not going to make it a default or anything like that. It'll be a case of 12.
Oh, do you have weight set up on that?
Should I?
Yeah, because I thought it shows you weight on that.
I have a purchasing weight.
Net weight is what we need.
Where is it?
It's the second one. SKU net weight.
Oh.
Why it said SKU net weight? I don't know.
But everything's usually named the same thing, so it's much easier.
It always named the same thing.
I don't know why I made this different.
I don't either.
All right.
Maybe we can see which one.
Okay, so let's refresh data.
Hold on a sec. Close this for me. I want to show you something. Never mind. I was going to show them how the F2 worked. You were in item maintenance. You would hit F2.
Well, it's not like they can see me push F2.
Shh.
Okay. Side quest over. This is... So, it's going to default to whatever the default sales unit is. But if you just select a different unit of measure... On the right, you can see all of the quantities change to be reflected in that unit of measure. So I
think it's the base unit of measure.
Is it the base, or I was thinking it was default selling, but okay,
it's base.
It's one of those.
It's one of those.
Okay. And then anything obviously that you see with the little arrow and box, that is a link that you can click out to and go see something else.
Does it carry the unit of measure to that tab as well?
Let's find out. Yes, it does.
It does. That's cool.
Yeah, and you can change that here.
Oh, maybe it does do sales then, because since there is a base and a each, which is the sales.
Yeah, so it's pretty slick.
You know what? I just learned that. I never knew that I knew about changing the unit of measure and it would change your quantities, but I never dawned on me that it carries that over with that drill down.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Transfer is going to show you open transfers, and it's split outbound on top, inbound on the bottom.
Go back to the inventory tab. I want to see if we have any. We do not have any on transfer. Okay.
No.
I was going to change the date so we could show what I was talking about, but there's none on transfer. It's fine.
Okay. This is a lot controlled item. And similar to how the units of measure work, if I select a different lot up here, it's going to refresh the bin information of what bins that lot resides in down at the bottom, along with its allocation. If you're using traceable factors as an extended lot attribute, that would show up here. If the supplier ID was picked up, that would show up here too. I don't think these would, because these were probably inventory adjustments.
Do you remember one of the things that you had to do for me back in the day? So, and we'll get into lots. Traceable factor is the only one that you can put on here from a lot attribute group. But we always wanted, we had like 4 or 5 that we wanted to display. We had to go around every elbow you can think of to figure out how to get all that data on there. It was not.
It wasn't easy, but
it was not fun.
But yeah,
but it was very necessary for us.
Yeah, I mean, so if you have other extended lot attributes you want to see on here without having to right-click and view additional lot elements, yeah, doable. It takes some work, but doable. So bins, kind of the same thing, but in reverse. If I select a different bin, then it's going to show me what lot those bins are in. You can also show empty bins, which is going to show you every bin that it's ever lived in, as well as identifying which bin is your primary. So it can be handy. This is going to show you what it's been substituted for and when, what it was substituted by and when, and what the acceptable substitutes for the item are. Interestingly, the interchangeable flag's not on here. I think it should be, but that's just me. Can probably be done and changed on. If you're using secondary process, the same thing. This is just showing you the different secondary processes, whether it was a finished good or a raw material.
Well, you have to, it's a toggle there.
Yeah, yep, that is correct. So your open ones are here, your completed ones are going to be here, and I think these are going to be the inventory receipts or the process PO receipts. Probably the process PO receipts down here.
Yeah, that's the when you're actually outsourced, like you're doing.
Yeah, it's external. Correct.
Yeah. Which is a very neat feature, and we are definitely going to do videos on production and
for sure.
Processing.
For sure. Where are we? Cost. So this is going to give you sort of the see, like this right here, in my opinion, is one field away from eliminating the need for the audit trail.
Right. I was just thinking it tells you the price, but it doesn't tell you
how did that affect the moving average cost. If you knew that on this screen, you'd be golden.
Right.
But this is going to show you all the different receipts against that. I like the PON0 there. That's a nice touch.
It's a new system. They'll work the bugs out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, this is sales orders with your unshipped pick tickets and scheduled releases in there as well. Then purchase orders, so there's POs that are open, the sales orders that are linked to them. I actually didn't realize that was there. I like that. I like.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it changes just like the receipt down there.
Yep.
Changes based on.
I do like that. All right, so this is just a reflection of that location-based replenishment tab and item maintenance that's kind of giving you... Oh, that's interesting. See, like, I never scrolled down before. Did not know this was down here. Huh.
There's a lot of information in Item Master Inquiry.
I mean, this is cool. This has got, like... This is your last PO and your next due in. I really like that. Uh-oh. Wow. I think there was a glitch in the matrix right there. So this is a reflection of your item history with your forecasts and error percentages and all that good stuff. One thing I do like is you can get in here and change, like I want to look at last 9 months because 3, 6, and 12 just is not what I want to see. You put that in and it's going to, number one, knock this down. And then I think that's kind of weird. Not sure why that just happened. But the main thing is doing is right here is changing this user defined average daily use or monthly usage, excuse me.
So here's a question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world is the forecast usage editable here? And it is. You can change it and save it. That seems insane on an inquiry screen.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I don't like that.
Nope. I swear it was a mistake, and then it was actually a customer of ours that pointed it out to me. I'm like, there's no way you could do that. And I'm like, oh no, you can. So we protect it. Yeah.
I am very uncomfortable. I just want to see what it does now. Wait, I can't type in there.
Maybe it was in other versions you could?
Oh, never mind. Oh, well, at least it wants me to make a comment.
Yeah.
Oh, that. And it doesn't even like... You want
to see if it actually... Did you save it?
I did. Well, it didn't take, number one.
Did it take your comment?
Maybe it thought I was being too much of a smart
Did you actually save? Because it didn't actually clear the item out. Because your item ID was still there.
I'm going to try this again. This is like...
Wait, where did you type it?
Right there.
No, the number, where?
Right there.
Okay.
So that's period 2 of 23.
Hit tab or what? Change it. There you go.
See, the save button's not even enabled. This is like, we're beyond bizarre at this point.
I think you bugged it out.
I'm gonna clear it. Actually, you know what? We're going all the way. I'm gonna close and rebuild it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if someone can just willy-nilly go in here and start changing usage, like that is twist your mustache and tie someone to a railroad track crazy. I mean, that shouldn't even be allowed to exist.
Hey, if you click that little box, it'll take you straight to it.
I was going to press F2 instead.
Oh, I appreciate that. So yeah, just pick the last one to change.
2 of 23 is not... There's nothing in there that's... Oh, I have to change something. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to change it and then hit save. I think it bugged out when you hit save.
Okay, so yeah, we'll just do, like you said, the very last one. Okay, it said it was successful. Mm-mm. 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 And it doesn't even say that. Ugh. Dyna changed this field out immediately. The only thing accurate about this is the fact that it made the percentage miss 100. That I agree with. Oh my gosh. No. Just no.
Well, it's not even like malicious. Like, it's somebody accidentally typing something in there could extremely throw off something.
I can't believe it. I can't even believe it. I'm going to item history to just make sure this isn't some feature that makes you feel better about yourself, but doesn't actually do anything. Oh, it's for real. Mm-mm. And what's worse is you can't recalculate or anything from there. Dude, that just shut it off, people. Just shut it off. Should not be allowed to exist.
Anyways.
All right. That hurt.
I'm happy I could bring that to you today.
Man. Years off my life. Years off my life.
Purchase stock card. We have talked about this at nauseum on other, but it's essentially, if you went and ran this in Porg, these are your numbers you're looking at. I like using this instead of Porg sometimes if I'm in a play system and I'm manipulating different fields and I want to see what it would do to my numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a quicker way to, because I just go back to the criteria tab, hit refresh data. So again, if you're in there and you're wanting, but obviously Porg is where you're going to get the most out of this information.
For sure. These are all the different customer part numbers I think that exist for it, and alternate codes and supplier part numbers. Yeah. It's kind of like,
like I said, there is I guess we could kind of talk about, we'll talk about alternate when we're talking about merging and renaming, but I guess we could kind of touch on customer part number 2 after this. It's probably.
Yep, we didn't put that on the list. You're right, we missed that. Contracts. This looks like job contract to me.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, this is job contracts.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then, I mean.
And there's more.
I really like this screen.
It is one of it, and it was not in the original version of the web. And I remember specifically when it came. I did some modifications to it with some Dyna changes because there's certain.
I was looking for moving average cost.
No.
Yeah, that's there. Yeah, it's not gonna work.
I can't remember what changes I made because there were a couple of things I didn't like. Oh, like transaction quantity. It gives you the quantity change, like it, there were there was other things I tweaked to it, but this became my first to go to for research.
Oh, this is good. And then again,
and it's also pending transactions. If you see it was unit cost. That's what I wanted on there that didn't exist there. If you set costs to be up on there, if it's a 0, it's because it hasn't actually.
I'm just going to throw this out there because, again, folks may not realize this is how this works. When you drop any of these calendars, if you want to move in larger increments, just keep clicking in the middle of the header, and it allows you to really start to narrow down. We don't really have anything in 2050. But it really starts to help you narrow things down quickly.
Yeah.
So, it's not a bad little feature.
So I think this is definitely useful it's useful for research. It's just useful for seeing some ins and outs. You're going to want to modify it a little bit, but it's one of the nicest transaction screens.
I like this ledger screen. I really do. The other one I'm a big fan of is commitment schedule. You see this in a lot of different places in the system. But again, this by default is lining up all of your ins and outs in the order that they're expected to happen, assuming your dates are halfway decent. I like it. I really do like this because if you're trying, it's netting out your stock and telling you when this transaction happens, this is what we think we're going to have. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Inventory returns. I don't think we're going to hit every single one of these screens. A lot of them are reduxes of each other, and it's just, hey, this is the type of transaction you're going to see on this. Production order, I think, is a little bit different because it's going to show you a lot of different things that are going on with it. There's some lot level detail in here. There are, here are production orders that have it open. Here's a list of assemblies that consume that component. I think is a good one as well. Linked information is in there.
And you can also flip it as a component and as
an assembly, right? So if you flip it to assembly view, then you get a different look. Yep. So I do like that one. Safety stock, this one is so close to being useful. All it's missing is telling you why.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that's driving it? Is it set at the item level? Is it set at the supplier level? Like, if they could just put that in there, this would be an extremely useful research tool.
You just don't question it.
Yeah, it makes more sense that way. That's what I've heard. Yeah. Who bought what lot? I totally agree. I like this one as well.
And there's actually a report too,
mm-hmm.
a stock report that gives you a lot of that same information.
But yeah, this is really good for being, especially if you have a risk of like recalls and things like that. Very easy to quickly figure out where that material ended up, as long as that's what you
when they bought it and all that. Hence, who bought what when. I will say this as my final thought on Item Master Inquiry is it's a really, really great resource and tool for a item. If you're trying to do a whole research on a product line or a subset of items, this is probably going to be tedious to try to do it this way.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's great information. And the nice part is all this information lives here. So if you do like this information, you can always create custom portals or reports that use this information, but maybe in a wider criteria of items. So,
all right,
that's Item Master Inquiry.
I agree. Okay,
let's knock out customer part numbers real quick because it's a
absolutely. Let me get over there.
Did you make a timestamp?
I'm about to.
Essentially, customer part number allows you to give your items an alias that your customer likes to use. If you want to be a really nice company and make sure that your customers can use their items to order your products, this is what
you're doing it. Look, for your bigger customers, you're doing yourself a favor. When we had the last place I worked, we had a company that was doing just millions of dollars of business, and these are like a lot of derivative parts. Like finishes are different, bolting patterns are different, gasket thickness is different. I mean, it's very simple but very complex at the same time and very easy to mess up. And so we took the time to put all of those customer part numbers in because then it was like, oh, I receive a PO and I key in exactly what's on this piece of paper and it works. And if it doesn't work, that means we know it's a part we've never seen before, and we can deal with that, you know.
And you can import them too. This is just the way to do them one at a time. You cannot mass delete them though without a special custom made tool that somebody could make for you if you would like.
All right, so their item ID is going to be, I don't know, just test washer.
There you go.
And then our item ID is B&D 001, oops, 00191-00. Done.
Yep. And if you enter an order as test washer, it'll pull that item up, but below it will have a note. By default, it has, was it called ordered as or placed as?
Ordered as, yeah.
Ordered as. It'll just have a little label underneath the item, so that way your customer can look and go, I don't know what BD. Oh, it's test washer.
Now I have to bring this up because we wouldn't be doing justice if I didn't bring it up, but there is actually a customer part number notepad.
Why wouldn't you just make the notes available in the other screen?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a soapbox I've already been on at some point. Make the notes available in the place that I'm creating the things. Just saying. I don't think you can put notes on there.
No, you can't, but there are some other things in here that there is an extended description field for it. There are some other things in here that may help. So just be aware of that. But no, I'm a big fan of customer part numbers. We can demo this out right quick. So if I am in order entry, and the part number immediately flips. As Matt said, though, on the documentation that goes with it, like the order acknowledgement or whatever, it's going to say ordered as. So it's going to show your part number and theirs. Again, you're creating less friction at order entry. You're creating less friction at your customer's accounts payable level. These are all good things. So I know it takes time to set them up. It definitely takes time to maintain them. But I think there's a lot of instances where, for lack of a better metaphor, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Print out the acknowledgement just so they can. You have to put a quantity on there.
Oh, yep.
Something else I would recommend to do if you are using customer part numbers, change your item screen. There is a customer part.
Yeah, where you can see it. Yep.
Yeah. So that way, if your customer calls and I have a problem with test washer, that's not on the screen by default. You need to know what that is. There you go.
Right there. So again, it's nice. I like it. I think it's definitely worth putting some effort into, especially for customers where you're doing a lot of volume and they have defined part numbers that they want to use. Okay.
And that also works when you place a PO. I don't even think you have to enter the vendor's part number. I think it just also displays it on the PO, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think also we're going to try this.
Nope.
Yep, that did absolutely well.
I think it's because it has to be.
There it is. The customer part numbers are part of advanced search.
Advanced search. Oh, that's right. We had that turned off. Okay.
Yep. So again,
don't turn advanced search off.
No, I agree. I really do. I just don't think it's worth it unless all you're doing is hitting add item all day. But yeah, alternate codes, customer part numbers, those are searchable. From here. So, again, I have a problem with test washer. You can find it with advanced search, which is great. All right.
Customer part number done. Make a note.
Make it so.
Item merge and
Yeah. So okay.
edit item IDs.
So item merging and item ID changes. I think we take these two together, right? Neither one of them is a huge feature. We can cover it, I think, pretty quickly. So people that are in this situation, they know the pain and suffering of, hey, we have the same part numbers been created twice. We need to bring them together. There is a feature in P21 to correct this, and it's called merge items or something like that. Item merge. And so this is just going to allow you to take everything out of one item that is your history, your inventory, your open sales orders, all of that stuff, all your costs, and bring it over and all under one item ID. Now, it is irreversible. Number one. Number two, I think after you do it, you do need to reforecast that item, because I don't think that happens on its own.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Number three, it depending on the items involved. Like if it's a couple of items that don't have a lot of history, it's pretty painless. But if these are items that have been around a long time, a lot of transactions, things like that, this is intensive. We have seen this deadlock people's systems when they use it during business hours. So it's something that you have to put some thought into about, the when, the how, the where that you're going to do it. So let's see, new. So we're going to go from a new item to one of our many flavors of Palmolive soap. You can choose to keep the old item ID as an alternate or not. There's a business case for both of those. You can choose to keep item restrictions if you are using those. So in this case, we will keep the alternate. We're not using restrictions. That doesn't make any difference.
Keep in mind, if they have different suppliers, all the suppliers are merged. Like they get
right. Like anything that was on the old item that wasn't on the new gets added, but I believe the item you're going to, that primary supplier stays the way it is.
I don't know what it does with unit of measures.
I don't want to know.
I think it doesn't do anything with unit of measures. I think all that's still based on the two item.
So you do get a result, like it tells you whether or not it was successful and all of that good stuff. So that is there for you. And then if we go to item maintenance, then we do a new item.
You don't have advanced search term, so it's not gonna find, or it's not gonna.
Yeah, you put the old item ID in, it will flip it, because we did retain it as an alternate code. So that is how that works. Again, the biggest thing about it is there is a performance hit when you do this, but that performance hit really depends on how much data we're actually talking about. There's really just no better way to say it than that.
Yeah, I mean, this is useful for somebody created an item for an item our item ID for an item that already existed, and it really doesn't have any history other than maybe a couple orders.
Nope.
And you just want to bring it in. If these are two items that have been around for 10 years,
it's going to take a hot minute.
Yeah, I don't know if item merge is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, if one of the items has been kind of like dead for a while and you don't necessarily need to merge it, you could delete the old item and then just adjust the usage history. That would probably get you 90% of the way there. But again, that's kind of a hacky way around it. The other thing we've seen people use it for, which I guess makes sense, is supplier A buys out supplier B. They both sell the same products and they all get merged up into one. Okay. I think it really just depends on what's the importance of retaining the history. That's probably really what defines it, at least in my mind. Editing an item ID, that's just exactly what it sounds like. You need to edit the item ID and change it into something else. So it's the same thing. What item are we changing? I'm not actually going to save this one. But you put in a proposed item ID, it's going to validate that to make sure that that doesn't exist already. This, I believe, also by default, well, you don't even have a choice. It does keep the old one as an alternate, right?
Yeah. And you can always go in and manually check the delete box on it if you want to.
Yeah. One thing that I will say, and I know we're going to do pricing service separately, which is fine, but you can do a layout with 2 columns, old item ID, new item ID, or something like that, or item ID and proposed item ID. And you can make mass changes for item ID edits really, really easy with pricing service. So it's definitely something to consider as an option if you need to do, like, hey, this supplier just bought this supplier and all the supplier part numbers changed, or that means our item IDs have to change because they're based on the supplier part number. Whatever, that will work, and it's a great way to do it.
Only thing I'll add to the both merging and editing item IDs, and this is more of a product of the way some of our data was constructed for reports and portals, and we used Focus. It broke some of our reporting data. Most likely, I think probably because we were keying off an item ID instead of
INV UID. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you all of a sudden are looking at a report that looks completely off, that maybe that's a thing to look at. And it was a big problem for us just because all your reports and everything should be using UIDs instead of the item ID.
To the most extent possible, that is for sure.
And you can still display the item ID, but that may be a bit in the weeds for some, but it caused a problem for us. Like it was a big to do, and we had to do some workarounds. But I think it's more a lack of understanding what we were doing in the beginning than P21's fault.
Something's up with your mic. It's really scratchy. It just started. Yeah, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
For all you fledgling IT people, turn it off and turn it on. Of your...
All right. Last but not least, the late ad. Planning. Oh, I gotta hit the thing.
Hit the thing. See, I wasn't going to tell you.
And then I almost forgot.
Yeah.
All right. So the topic we want to talk about here is how to think about setting up units of measure on an item. It is. I have some thoughts on this that have served me pretty well, and I have had. God help you if you sell gloves. That's all I'm going to say. So, all right, let's just kind of talk through the concept of all the different units of measure and what they really mean. All right, base unit of measure. First thing to understand about that is this is the unit of measure in which inventory will be stored on the database. Like it's the lowest functional unit of inventory. And my guidance in 99% of cases is
cases.
This is going downhill so fast. My guidance in 99% of situations is that it should be the lowest conceivable unit that you're going to operate in. Notice I didn't say sell or buy. I avoided those two words on purpose. here's a great example. We buy this item by the pallet. We sell it by the box. Great. Oh yeah, we also do secondary processes to break it down, put it into smaller packages, and put it into vending machines. What is the smallest conceivable unit that you will try to transact in? And, I understand 9 times out of 10 that you're going to sell a pack of 12 and that's your base unit. But if you ever crack that package open, you are now working in each.
Yeah, and your smallest one doesn't have to be what you sell. I mean, because if you always sell them in packs of 12, you just make that your default sales unit.
Correct. So, and that's a great segue. So the check boxes that you're faced with are the default sales and sales pricing unit. Okay. So that's just what it sounds like. Like by default, if I enter a sales order for this, it's going to be for one of that unit or X of that unit, which could be a case, could be a carton, it could be a box, could be a pallet, could be an each. It doesn't matter. It's like, what do you normally sell it in? Go with that. Sales pricing unit. Like, well, why would that ever be different than the sales unit? Well, there are industries that do that. So like if you take the fastener industry, for example, you frequently get into situations where things are so small and inexpensive that like tenths of a penny count. And so in order to combat that, what they do is they sell it by the 100 or by the 1,000. So you'll see a pricing unit of C or M, Roman numerals, just in case anybody cares. But so like I sell you 500 each and I'm pricing them at $5 per 100, something like that. Or, $50 per 1,000, however you want to set that up. Purchase pricing and purchase units are the same thing. It's just on the buying side. Yeah, I understand they normally sell by the box. We buy by the case or the pallet or whatever. This allows you to do that. Now, if you substitute a lot, okay, and you're substituting similar products from different suppliers, so 3M makes, I'm not using masks. I refuse. Bic sells pens in packs of 12. Is Papermate even still around? Mm-hmm. Okay. Papermate sells them in packs of 10, right? If you have those set up as substitutes, you need to think about the fact that if pack is if pack is your base unit on those two things, it doesn't represent the same number of pins. You subbed 10 pins for something you would normally sell 12. Okay. That's a cruddy example, but you get my point. Like if you're trying to know how many pens you sold, your substitution is going to be messed up because it's going to try to resolve back to the base unit. But if the two base units are not common to each other, the data is worthless.
Yeah.
So, these are considerations. If you manufacture or if you do a lot of production, which I guess could be considered the same thing, but here's a really good real life example. Let's say that I came from fasteners. You're making bolts out of bars of steel. You're making a 4-inch bolt out of a 40-foot bar of steel. You can make, however many bolts out of one bar based on whatever your cut length is. If you say that the base unit of measure for the steel is 1 bar, that means you have to do the division to say, like, it's 1/480th of a bar is an inch. That's insanity. That's not going to work. You're going to get into decimal precision issues that will haunt you for the rest of your days.
And decimals are so much fun in P21.
Yeah. So,
especially manufacturing.
So we may always buy by the bar or the pound or the hundredweight or whatever it is, but we're actually cutting it down to the inch or smaller. We need to set that base unit of measure at the smallest unit that we could conceivably work in. The reason that I said, God help you if you sell gloves, because I spent an hour explaining this. And I said, look, the base unit of gloves is a pair. That's it, right? A dozen can be derived from a pair, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, what about rubber gloves? There's no left or right. And I'm like, I quit. I don't.
Unit of measure, a glove.
Yeah. What do you do then? You know?
And again, this stuff can be...
It's a mind bender. It really is.
Well, and you can alter it after, but it's such a pain.
Here's okay. Here's the thing. It's easier to go up than it is to come down. So if you can't make a decision, or if you have a lot of consternation in the organization about, hey, we should do it this way or that way, err on the side of using the smaller unit of measure, because it's much easier to up convert than it is to down convert. If you need to up convert, you just set a different unit of measure as your defaults and be done with it. It's fine. If you need to down convert, now you're doing a base unit of measure change. I'm just going to tell you straight out, I have never been that successful doing those unless I had canceled the sales orders, canceled the POs, and adjusted all the inventory first.
Yeah. I was about to say, I've done it.
It's
but you got to cancel
horrifying.
all transactions.
Yeah.
And we actually did it where when we had to do it, we adjusted the inventory out. We knew how much the cost of the final, like if we adjusted $200 out, whatever the unit sizes were,
you had to get it back in at $200. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was lit because we tried it the other way. We tried to do it midstream.
Mm-mm.
Honestly, it's burn it down and then rebuild it back up.
Yep.
We basically would cancel all open transactions, then create the new unit of measure. Well, actually, first we would adjust out, then go create the new unit of measure, delete the old unit of measure, or soft delete, then go back and adjust in with the correct end value. It's the only way to do it 100% right.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you also need to go, I don't trust the system, and we can show this when we change a default unit. I never trusted the math.
Oh, the rescaling? Yeah.
Right. I always felt better just, okay, it's all inventory's all out. Here's my new purchasing unit. Here's my new sales one. And I'd go set my costs and lists accordingly and then go do my adjustment back in. It's a pain.
Yeah. And if you think about trying to do it on a high volume item, something that always has sales orders open on it, it's, again, seriously, err on the side of setting your base smaller because it's way easier to recover from that. That's it.
And this is why unit of measure should not be a default in item maintenance.
Yeah.
Or because it is so, yes. I mean, theoretically the unit size is what really matters. You always have to have one, but it gets real nasty real quick. So,
I mean, we have seen systems set up where each case and pack all have a unit size of 1.
Yeah.
It's like,
that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
That's not how math works.
No. I think that is a conversation that like when it comes to setting up, I bet you in a pre-implementation consulting scenario, we will spend more time talking about how you're going to set up the intricacies of items than anything else. just because it underpins. I mean, it's a distribution system. Of course it underpins everything. That's what distribution is. And trying to unravel fundamental mistakes in that process, it's bad. I mean, we've done it. We've gone in and done repairs of 75,000 items, but I don't want to do it again if I don't have to.
Well, and it's one of those things, like I said, it touches everything you do in your business, but sometimes people just pencil whip it through, and it's just like, it's so important. Why would you not take the time to make sure it's right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, that I'm going to bookmark one more and just throw this one out there, and maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. But maybe let's spend a few minutes talking about the different ways we've seen customers organizationally manage their items, good and bad, right? Like, because we've seen a lot,
One instantly dropped to my head on how not to organize your items. We have a lot of people that come to us about purchasing advice and consulting. It's something that both Andy and I are very passionate about as far as P21 goes. So ABC class is one of those things that we obviously talk about when we're talking about up to and things like that. And I got into somebody's system and they showed me, and they had 32 different ABC classes. And I was like, that's really unusual and strange. And it's because they were using it because somebody had found a report or something in P21 that lets you run stuff by ABC class. So they were using it as a way to group items, like items. So, which is, if you use up to, you have to have that.
Yeah.
If you're not, or you don't have to, but if you're not using ABC class and you're up to, then you're not fully using up to.
Right.
So that the biggest mistake, and that we've seen it a lot, is people taking something in item maintenance and making it work for something else.
Yeah.
Like, and that was one of the most egregious ones I saw. I didn't even know what to say, and they were like, "Yeah, we found out it's a problem." I'm like,
"Yeah,
yes.
You did."
Yes, it's a problem.
Well, there's a couple of concepts I've run across, and I would say that in the last 5 to 7 years, a little bit more than that, because it really started before this whole thing started full time. My opinion has really evolved on, and data management is one of those things. So a good example is, we've seen scenarios where, every item like goes into a review queue, right? Where this item was just created and someone has to go tick the box and say, I reviewed this item and made sure it was set up properly. And this is a company creating 50 items a day, just like what you were saying before. And what we ended up finding out when we really started looking into it was that 80% plus of those items only ever showed up on quotes. They never got put on purchase orders or converted to sales orders. And I started asking myself, what actually is the value of managing the attributes of an item that you never purchase, never bring into your inventory, or never send out to a customer ever? I mean, I would even say you could maybe apply that to something that's only ever gone out on a direct, It doesn't, like, it. If you've never transacted on it, I guess maybe not direct, but if you've never transacted on it, I'm a data person. I believe in good, clean data. I mean, you guys know me. I talk about it all the time, and we strive to get better at that here. But I just don't see the value. I think it's a lot of wasted effort. I really do. I would much rather see a scenario where the item gets created, you get the customer's quote requirement taken care of, and then your portal is not driven on the item being created. It's driven on, hey, this is the first time this item has showed up on a sales order or purchase order. That's when you clean it up.
Yeah.
Because then you're cutting out probably most of it. So that is a strategy that I've often proposed to customers. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. But I still think it has a lot of merit. I really do. Especially if organizationally you're going to say nearly anyone can set up an item. And look, y'all, I came from a purchasing background. I came from sales too, but like the bigger part of my career, let's say, not necessarily in time, but in intensity and impact, was on the supply chain operations side. I started in sales, but can you imagine me being a salesperson? It's not good. But in any event, I spent a lot of time being frustrated about, well, they're not doing this right, they're not doing that right, whatever, from the sales side. I really don't want salespeople becoming proficient at setting up items. I really don't. It's a non-value added task. What I really want them doing is selling more items. That would make me happy. But, trying to turn the screws down on data management for people that, number one, that's not what they hired on for. They're probably not going to be that good at it, and they're certainly not passionate about it. From a human behavior standpoint, you're never going to get a good result on that, ever. So why try? You've got to look at what's the minimum viable product. What is it that we're really trying to achieve here? And what's the least painful path that we can take to do that? And again, I think you manage data when it matters. That's a big one. We've also seen the opposite extreme where almost no one has the rights to create an item. Like 2 people in an organization of 200.
Bottleneck.
Huge bottleneck. And huge hit by a bus risk. What happens, and we always say if that person gets hit by a bus, but it's more than that. They get sick. And they don't die, but they're out for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Or they want to retire or whatever, Matt had made some reference to projects we've done before about helping, like building part configurators, which we have. And they're incredibly expensive to build because you're trying to take 30 years of someone's experience and distill it into code. I will say this, once you build it, you're insulated from that problem forever. Because now anyone can set up a part number and it will be correct. So when you're looking at your organization, look, I've given talks on this before. I don't believe the customer is always right. I believe the customer always has a right to retain their dignity. That I 100% believe in. But I don't think that you do just whatever the least friction thing is for sales all the time because that's what's best for the customer. I don't ascribe to that because I think the wake that it leaves in the organization a lot of times isn't worth it. There's got to be a balance. So I think when you're talking about managing items in a company, you really have to look at it as, look, we want it to be convenient, but at the same time, we don't want to leave a disaster for someone else to clean up. We need to set very, we really need to figure out the must-have, nice-to-have factors and hone in on those and get those right. What I saw today on the fly, I think the Dynachange improvements there's a lot of pickup there. So if you guys have been on the system for a long time and wow, I believe we have touched a nerve. Every day we get issues, tons of duplicates from past salesmen. It's a mess. Yeah, listen, we we absolutely feel your pain. And we absolutely
we have been there.
Yeah.
we
And
have been on that side.
And we continue to go there with customers frequently. And so it's one of the first questions, like when we get into this conversation with customers where they have 800,000 SKUs and potentially 15-20% of them are duplicates. It's like, okay, here's what we can and can't do. I mean, let's just understand we're not writing some fuzzy logic that can figure out all these misspellings, right? I mean, there's certain things we can do to identify potentials. We can make it less painful to merge items and things like that. And we can do a lot on the front end to make sure that we prevent it from happening in the future. But my question to the client is usually, okay, let's say we spend all this money and do all of this. How are you going to prevent this from happening in the future? What is your plan to get control of the process from here on out? Because that probably has more value than trying to clean up the past, to be honest. Because the farther forward in time you go, the less relevant the older duplicates become. And they're still relevant to a degree, but the farther back in history you go, eventually, they don't really matter as much. So I think really and truly there's a conversation to be had with all interested parties to say, okay, look, I don't want to set up every item in the company anyway, so I'm not trying to say I should be the only one that should do it. However, I do have to deal with the ramifications of it being done in a way that doesn't get us through P21 in the way that we need to get through it. That's where I'm coming from, and now where are you coming from? And now let's have a conversation about, well, these are really the key things that need to happen to make this work as well as it possibly can, and that's what you go after. It's not all or nothing at all. It's always shades of gray, and you just got to find the one that works the best for you, not that works perfectly. Again, I said it earlier in the live stream. If what you're after is a solution that gets you to perfection, you're going to end up with just frustration. That's what's going to happen. So you have to look at how do I reduce the pain 70 or 80%, because that's huge. I don't know. That's what I think, Matt. I don't know.
No, and it's a sentiment that I think we have harped on almost every stream that we do is, before you put a hand to a keyboard, make a plan, write it out, figure out how you want this to work 80% of the time. And the other part is hopefully you work with whoever is helping you. Again, it's us. You can call us. That's great. Make sure you ask enough questions. You'll fall. And I speak as this as a personal level, where when we went through our implementation, there's certain things that we just did because, well, that's how it was set up in our legacy system. And we just, well, that field will work. We'll just map it and we'll just go. Not realizing, and the perfect example is product group. In our legacy system, product group was a way to group. It was called something else, I don't remember. But it was a way we could run reports by vendor. Well, in P21, when you run PORG, you can run by supplier. But what we did was we made all of our product groups supplier groups. So you essentially have less options now when you're running PORG.
Yeah, because you just made a redundant field.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if we would have understood how PORG worked in general, like we didn't even look at PORG after we made these, until after we made these decisions as a company. We could have used that as a subset of way to group products, but still run by supplier if we want to run wide open by supplier. And that literally would have just taken some understanding. And, I guess that's easy. It's one of the reasons we do this, right? Because there's not a lot of readily available information for you to try to understand the system. And we do I have customers, or potential, not customers, prospects that are like, hey, we're thinking about going to P21. and they're trying to go out there and ask these questions before they actually purchase it. So
I mean, look,
ask questions.
We had our first customer, or maybe second. Actually, they were from Indiana, and they had an amazing snack room. They were the inspiration. But they
No snacks over here still.
you go to Chick-fil-A and get your frozen lemonade or whatever.
Frosted lemonade.
So but they asked me, they were small, like 10, 12 users. And they asked me, can you just observe what our people are doing and, see what they need? And so I would go and sit with the person and say, okay, well, what would make your life easier? And the first thing this one lady said was, it would be so awesome if we could just put the supplier's phone number right here on the extended info tab in sales order entry. Why? Well, because I have to call them to verify pricing on every sales line? Yes. Okay, I have a different idea. How about we just correctly set up supplier pricing in your system so that it prices and you don't have to make that phone call and it just goes to the vendor, and and that's what we did. And it was just like, I have found that, and again, I'm not necessarily advocating that everyone needs to go hire a third-party consultant. But if you do, no, I'm just kidding.
Click here.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Ring the bell.
A lot of my career has been based around going into situations where we needed to affect a lot of change pretty quickly. Like something was fundamentally important to the business, it needed to be changed pretty radically. And my responsibility was to go in and make that change happen. And so what I observed in doing that was that insiders, people that are close to the process, when they think about getting more efficient or making big changes, they're very incremental. They look at what they're doing and they typically have ideas that are going to move the needle 5 or 10%. And that's not to say that they're bad ideas. They're not. But people are looking at it through the prism that they're working from every day. That is the world that they're living in. And so they're like, oh, this would, this is like the example with the phone number. This would make me 5% more efficient because I wouldn't have to go to another screen to look up the phone number. But if we fix the underlying problem, you're going to be 500% more efficient. And so a lot of times outsiders can take, I wouldn't recommend saying, hey, just come look at our process and see what's wrong. It kind of worked there because they were new on P21 and very small. But you need to know what your pain points are. Like, hey, this seems like it takes too long to do, or it's too labor intensive. And once you know that, having someone look at that with fresh eyes that has no vested interest, no preconceived notions or anything like that, having someone different look at that problem, they should be looking at it as, how do I 4x this? Like if it takes 20 minutes to enter an order now, how do I get that down to 4 or 2? Not how do I get it from 20 to 18. 20 to 18 is great, but if we aim for 4 and land at 6, that is amazing transformation. That's what you're really after. And it's not a pipe dream. You can do that kind of stuff. It's just finding the right spots. We had, just as another example, we have a customer that they did vending machines and they wanted to do a lot more vending machines, but they had like 25 CSRs that were all completely overworked. They were entering all these vending machine orders by hand, and putting more orders through the import service manager wasn't going to work because they were already maxing out how many orders they can enter a day through SISM. just because it takes time to enter an order through SISM. You can only do so many. And they're like, we just need to figure out how to do, 10, 20% more orders. And I'm like, no, we need to figure out how you can 3x your vending machine business. We need to take bottlenecks in order entry off the table as a problem and come up with a way that you can enter 10,000 orders a day. That way you can just go. And that's the goal we went after. Were they able to create 10,000 orders a day? No. But we got them to 7,500 from 1,000. So, that should be the problem solving approach. When you're having these conversations in your organization, dream big, think big, think about how to diametrically change the outcome, and you're probably going to have a lot more success. It seems like a good place to wrap this up.
I think so. We're about 3.5 hours today.
Perfect. And the audio's probably good, and the video looks pretty good all day.
I've been checking a couple times. It's like, all right, I hear it. It works.
Dude, if we have to go back and do this one a third time,
Nope.
I just don't think I'm going to be able to handle it.
Nope.
But we got a few minutes, or we don't. We can close it down at pretty much any time. But if anybody watching, if you've got any questions or comments, throw them in chat. Well, we're happy to answer them. We certainly appreciate all the support and people tuning in. It's always funny to me. Like some live streams we have pretty good turnout, and then some live streams we have not so great turnout. But on the other end, a lot of people watch it after the fact, which is super cool. We really appreciate it. Our goal is we tried to take a lot more structured approach to this one. We had an actual outline to go off of. And what we would like to do is take this live stream, break it into 7 or 8 more single topic videos that we can release. And that way, if people only want to learn about merges and item ID edits, then they can just kind of do that without having to endure the whole 4 hours. I know it's
Train wreck.
The train wreck part's the most fun there.
It is.
I can't sit around and be stuffy for a complete day. That would kill me.
Well, I just ooze stuffiness.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, your background says it all, man. You're just so stiff and corporate. I'm not even sure why with that like that doesn't fit our culture.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh. Well, look, we really appreciate everybody watching this. It was a lot of fun for us. Have we decided for next week? Or I know we have a couple of things out there. Lots, bins, and cereals, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think lots are... They're a big topic.
Yeah.
And it's something that almost any industry can kind of relate to, just in different ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, I don't know if it'll be a full 3 or 4 hour. It may be. It could be.
Could be. Yeah, lots, bins, and cereals, I think, is where we're going to go next week for sure. So tune in for that. So there it is. It's like, I can't even, I don't know what, click in for that? That sounds stupid.
Hit that notify bell.
Yeah. Adjust the rabbit ears on the TV. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. And we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.